Okay, this is going to be 30 frames, unfortunately, because that's what my settings for YouTube are.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, my camera's only 30 frames.
Yeah, it'll be even less going over the stream. So.
Yeah, that's better. The buffer is staying constant now.
Okay, well,
So I didn't know you could look at that information from your end. That's
Yeah,
pretty
you
cool.
right-click the video and you click Stats for Nerds. It brings up this really cool little UI.
Oh, it's right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fine now. The buffer's solid. It's got about 5 seconds in there.
Should I try to do 60 frames or should I just stick with 30?
No,
Okay.
just
Nah, don't bother.
Okay. All right.
Oh, can they can hear us?
I don't.
Can they,
Oh yeah, they can hear us. Well, I'll just go here. Hey guys. when I changed profiles in OBS, the microphone mute wasn't clicked anymore. So hey, we didn't say anything too offensive, did we?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I wasn't thinking about it. Well, here we are.
Here we are. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is our second stream actually with the NT Mini. We just kind of, when we did the previous one, Corey was out of town. I was thinking what would be fun to do with the 8-Bit Duke when he was on as our guest, and I just thought, well, let's play a bunch of NES games. And Corey was like, well, why don't you do it through the NT Mini? I'm like, well, okay, because the jailbroken firmware had just been released 2 days prior, I think. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So here we are, and we are joined by the man himself, Kevtris.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have been excited to see you show. Well, I don't think we actually said until just before the stream that you'd be here, but I know people are excited to have you here. So it's awesome to have you on.
Yeah, well, it's fun to be here.
So I literally just I was not home for the weekend. I literally pressed the launch button on the video, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this full screen here. And I might have to resize my once I get a game right, I might see if I have to resize my video window. But I just installed the newest jailbreak firmware. I wasn't home for the weekend. Which this one adds Atari 2600. Unfortunately, I don't have anything Atari 2600 to run on it right now, but there is a lot of new stuff we can do since the last stream because ColecoVision and Master System and Game Boy and all that stuff was not available at the time. So the first thing I do when I install new firmware is go into the menu and swap buttons. But that's
what do you mean?
The default is B confirm A cancel, but that's just kind of like the EverDrive is.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like that, so I added the option to flip it. It was kind of I just sort of did it that way, and I didn't even really think about how the high def did it. So everyone's complaining about that. So there.
And I like to do the 5X, and I normally put the vertical height at 12 because I kind of base that on Super Mario Brothers. It seems like most games with like a HUD on the top of the screen, 12 sort of feels like the right level of room for it to me, but some games where it has a HUD on the bottom, sometimes I have to move it up a little bit.
Yeah, I usually do it at 4X. I don't mind the little black bars there.
Yeah, I'm a big 4X fan too. But then again, most of the time I'm just capturing it, and I'd rather have the entire screen, and I just scale it up in Premiere and post-production.
Right. And since I'm kind of playing on the HDTV here, I like to run it that way.
Well, unfortunately, there's not going to be a 5X height for the high def. There's not enough memory on the FPGA.
Yeah, that's what we've heard. But
yeah, well, someone's asking in the chat, so.
Yeah. Now I successfully dumped the mother ROM that you see dumped in the video was my first successful ROM dump. I'm very proud. Because you go into this menu, I don't have a cartridge in it right now. But you've got all this mapper stuff, and I didn't even know what mappers were until Corey did I forget what video it was you did. I
As
was like,
EverDrives.
yeah, and I think I started to hear about when we were doing AVS a little bit, and I was like, people were talking about this like it should be a word I know, and if you were into emulation, you would, but that was kind of unfamiliar to me. I'm used to I put an NES game in and it goes. But to dump the ROM, you have to choose the right mapper, which I think Mother 3 was this generic MMC3 one.
Yeah, it's MMC3.
So yeah, it worked. I tried dumping something else before, and I think I chose the wrong one. And so when the mother one worked, I was very proud of myself. But anyway, so here we've got the cores, and the previous firmware you had accidentally left Atari 2600, and
Yeah, I left that in there.
and yeah, you have to forgive me. I'm bad with my Atari numbers. It's 7800 and 5200, right?
Yeah.
So
And there's
why-
also the computers.
So, and so 7800 was in there. Now, in the lists I've seen of your cores, I haven't seen 5200. Is that are you just skipping it, or is it cross compatible with 7800?
No, it's the reason I haven't done 5200. I want to do the Atari 8-bit computer, and the
Okay.
5200 is the 8-bit computer with a cartridge slot and no keyboard.
Okay. So I was wondering if that was that was going to be a thing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I've
So
got one cartridge for 5200, but no 5200 system.
Yeah, I think I got a couple 5200 cartridges, and I kept them so when I make the card adapter, so I can actually try it out.
Yeah, I really like how it looks. I've got the Mario Brothers cartridge, and it's just like
You got that when you were visiting me.
Yeah, I did. It's just a really colorful cartridge, and like it's just I don't know, it's just kind of a good size. I kind of like them more than the others. The 7800 ones are kind of boring because they're just black and white. And I actually recorded all of the music in the episode right here with the NSF player. I added some reverb to most of them because that's just kind of what we normally do with our music on the channel. But I did get the original recording from the NSF player. I did all of them over analog output except for the little Blaster Master bit.
I had no idea that you created the format of NSF.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. 'Cause
I remember
it's on
having a
Wikipedia.
plugin for Winamp and downloading NSF files from Zophar's domain when I was in college.
Yeah, I created it because I was waiting for someone to create a SID-like format. The SID file format's very similar. And after like 2 years, nobody did. I'm like, okay, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm just going to create this format. And it was on 98 or 99, and I think it was earlier than that, 97 maybe. And I created the format, ripped a few tunes, and
Wow.
a couple of people made players, and I made that Hard Nest player, and then it just kind of went from there.
So, I mean, how do you go about? I mean, of all the bits that are in a game ROM, how do you go about just extracting the sound?
Oh, it's really easy. Usually the music is all like a totally separate program, so you can just rip the music. It's in its own like bank on the game, and you just rip that out, add the header, and you're done.
So it's almost hardly any work at all.
Yeah, well, that's why there's some of the later NSFs that were really hard to rip, and they didn't conform to that, so they were much more like intertwined with the game, and it made it much more difficult to rip, and that's why some rips took a lot longer to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the visualizer because I'm not a very musical person at all. I can't I can't read sheet music. I can't hum a tune. I can't do anything. And most visualizers that people really like, I'm just like, I see it moving, but I don't feel how what I am seeing is connected to the music. But when I see this visualizer, it just makes it very, very clear to me. It's like, oh, I can see exactly which channel is being hit and how loud, and it's so cool to see them moving back and forth.
Yeah, that's why I like making these visualizers on all of the synthesizers I've made. They almost all have a visualizer on them. I think they all actually have a visualizer on them.
Yeah, I think you've got one on the high def NES, but I think it may have been added later because I don't. I'm going to be getting one very soon. I've actually got the kit. I'm going to be getting it installed very soon. But when we did the episode, I was borrowing Bob's from Retro RGB, and I don't remember it at the time, but I think I saw a video of it more recently with a visualizer. Am I right?
Yeah, it's always been in there.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's been in there.
Okay,
Maybe the very first one didn't have it. That would have been like a review or a sample. But
yeah,
release did have it.
I probably just didn't notice it because I wasn't at the time looking too much at audio settings. We were trying to stick pretty strictly to the visual stuff. But then after we released the video, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I wish you had spend more time on the audio stuff." And I was like, well, I didn't really think about it because it's an RGB video. We can focus on
we
the
really
video.
didn't do anything with audio until I think to the NES Classic episode.
Yeah, and that was because
where it was really apparent.
Really necessitated it. And I did want to go into it a little bit with this just because, people do have people want to know. I mean, so we do have to branch out like beyond just the video stuff, just to inform people of the general functions of anything that we feature. I didn't realize for the longest time that for whatever reason, I need to go into the menu and change this. For whatever reason, for the open menu hotkey, I like left and select. And I also like turning off reset and power because it makes me paranoid. But what I was going to say was I didn't realize for a long time that the cartridge audio was expansion audio. This was the slider for turning on expansion audio. So for a long time, I thought the only way you could do it was the simulation chips, because I saw expansion audio, and I go in there, and I realized this is 0 by default. So I did finally figure that out, or someone said something. I was like, oh, I just completely overlooked that. So it's I love that you've got the option to do it both ways. You can use the real processing from the cartridge, or you can use the simulation. So well, since last time with the Duke we played all NES and Famicom games. Let's boot up some old Master System. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
Now, something I noticed about Master System, which is interesting, when you're doing 5X, unless I'm pretty sure. Now, you'll see it go black for just a little bit because you'll see it go black because it has to load up the FPGA core. You have to load up the FPGA core. It swaps it out. But once this is loaded, it can play Game Gear and ColecoVision without swapping over anything at all. So...
And you have everything. It looks like you have the Smoke Monster.
Yeah, it's the Smoke Monster pack. I'm going to, for the long term, I'm going to really clean this up. I think I'm going to mainly just clear it out to games that's like I own, and in the future.
It's good to have everything on hand. I
only own 2 Master System games.
Mine a lot.
Yeah.
So if you want what I have, like how I have everything.
There's that bug again. I've been trying to figure out how to reproduce that problem.
Which bug?
Where the text goes past the into the board.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that.
I noticed that in the video too. There was a shot with that.
I cannot make that happen.
You can't make that happen, really.
I cannot make that happen, so I cannot figure out how to fix that.
Do you have the Smoke Monster pack?
No.
Maybe that's it. I don't know, because it's on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It does that for me too. It looks like it's displaying the letter from a row that goes too long in the root folder.
Yeah, it does because
or the root folder for that console's ROMs.
Yeah, so when you if you hit the back there, I noticed it was that directory listing there. Maybe it's the commas or something in it.
Oh. Yeah, or just that it's too long.
No, it gets cut off if it's too long. It counts. So that's I can't figure out how that could happen.
Maybe,
theoretically, that can never happen, but it does.
maybe it is the commas then.
Oh no, I know why it's doing it. Actually, I'm going to write that in my to-do here. I know. It's that / it doesn't count it.
Okay. Yeah.
You should play some Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. It's kind of a parody of the first Shinobi. It's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I booted up and it seemed interesting. It seemed to.
It seems like something you'd like.
It seemed to.
It's also a very rare and expensive game.
Really? Wow. Is the what about the Japanese version?
I have no idea. I don't know.
So something I've noticed, this game doesn't seem to do it. Actually, this one has like a blue border, sort of like.
Well, all Master System games have like a really big border.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. It seemed like most games used a black border, and so it didn't have nearly as much resolution as the NES games.
Yeah, I mean, certain ones have huge border. Like I know that Outrun has a really big border on it.
Yeah, they can control the color of the border, so if they don't make it black, you can see it, because the active area is only 192 pixels high, and the NES is 240. So it's like 48 pixels less tall, I guess you could say.
Oh, wow.
So
like a 5X would work really well on this system, because you wouldn't cut anything off.
Yeah. In fact, let me see. Let me look at the... Actually, I'm actually not cutting off...
You are on 5X, aren't you?
I am on 5X, and it looks like I'm actually not... Other than, actually, no, I'm not losing anything on the left and right at all. It looks like I've actually got this this framed up perfectly, accidentally. So, how many Alex Kidd games did not make it to the U.S.?
I think only one, the BMX racing
that
game.
needs a special controller.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
That's probably why it was never released.
Yeah, I booted it up and I couldn't figure out how to make it work, so I actually recorded a little bit of the demo instead, but it man, I'm kind of bad at this. Kind of like...
Well, it's a Shinobi game.
Yeah, kind of like Shinobi, Revenge of Shinobi. Well, I'm okay at Shinobi 3. I can beat it.
Yeah, actually, I like this game. I was going to go back and play through this.
I was having
it's
a really...
pretty good. It's a fun parody of the original.
I was having...
I like that Captain Silver, too. That was really fun.
Yeah. You know, I didn't play Captain Silver until I did the EverDrive episode.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I thought, like, wow, this is actually... It's always was one of those games that I would see in magazines or, like, on... You know, when the Master System games would come with these big posters that would have so many games, and it just, like, had all these screenshots on the back, and I'd always see it in there.
Lamppost.
Yeah, and if you can spin around, right?
Yeah, you
do like a
do
flame.
that later on to get through the level. Yeah, I didn't know you could do that.
I don't know how to get past these guys without jumping over them.
You gotta jump over them. Or you can jump over... You can't damage them. Maybe you could duck and hit them.
Maybe. What was I gonna say? I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was having a little trouble playing Quartet because
the buttons are reversed.
The buttons are reversed. It's like really hard.
That is not the only Master System game that does it. Alex Kidd does it. The first Alex Kidd does it.
Yeah, I tried that too.
Yep. The old putting jump on. Well, I guess it'd be the 2 button on the Master System.
Yeah, it was something else that I thought was a little weird is that most games say press start button, but I mean, you just press.
But button 1 was the start button.
Button 1 is the start. Yeah.
Does it actually say start on it though?
It does. Yes, it does.
Okay, I've only had a real Master System controller for a few months because a lot of games don't work properly anyway.
On what?
When you use a Genesis controller.
Oh, only certain games don't.
Well, like the first Master System game I had was Wonder Boy in Monsterland, and he just with the Genesis controller he just turns left and right forever.
And drops to the floor.
And then drops through the floor like after a while. It's crazy.
A lot of people talking about that Retro Blocks thing. I haven't really been following too closely.
I've been following it on Atari Age a little bit.
Does it seem promising, or is it...
Well, I think they're quote-unquote hybrid emulation's a load of crap and it'll never work. But other than that, I mean, it looks okay. But, I mean, I think it's deeply flawed in their idea of using a CPU to, like, low-level emulate will never work.
Well,
I mean, even for more recent, like 32-bit systems too, right?
Well, no, they were talking about doing like super low-level emulation. They called it hybrid emulation. So it's basically making a CPU of some kind emulate the hardware at a low like cycle level, enough to run an actual cartridge without dumping it.
Well,
wow.
They had some, I believe it was PlayStation games running at like a convention of some kind, because I saw like a video of a demonstration. So I don't know what method they were using, or if that was that may have just been.
It's just a regular everyday emulator. In fact, on the demo, I'm pretty sure they had the game they were running was actually already on the drive in the system.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So. And, I mean, it's okay, but, I mean, I think they should just call it what it is, which is just an emulation box. It's kind of like it shares a lot with a Retron 5, where it dumps, I think it's just going to dump the game and then run the ROM that it dumps, like the Retron 5 does.
Have you paid enough attention to know if they're going through the right channels for using the emulators?
I don't know. But what was interesting is they said they didn't know if they'd, support Saturn and N64. And the reason why is because those are like the only two systems that don't have a good emulator.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that the N64 emulator was still...
and all that, but I just think their whole idea of doing this hybrid emulation is just kind of like it's not going to work like they think it will. I mean, if they go the Retron 5 route, that's perfectly fine, but I mean, just call it what it is.
What about oh wait, what do I do here?
this is where you can jump on it, and you got to jump, and there you go. If you press attack, I believe, or hold down attack when you're hanging from that thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, going up that thing is where you need it. So I'm watching the delayed stream, so I'm pretty sure you've gotten to that point where you had to use it.
Yeah, that's cool. What about like a situation like with something like PS1? Even if it was an emulator, like you still need like a BIOS to make that work, right?
Yeah, that's true for a lot of these systems. You need the built-in ROM. Like, even the Master System needs it, too. I mean, you can run the games without it, but a lot of games will just crash if you don't have the BIOS in there.
So how, I mean, my understanding is there's really no, like, really, truly legit way they could do that.
That's true.
But they're going to do it anyway.
A ROM, yeah. There's no way around it. You're going to have a ROM.
So,
I mean, the only way around it would be to do a high-level like emulation, and that just usually doesn't work very well. Or for something like a PlayStation, for sure.
Yeah. Now, how did something like the Bleem do it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Some people,
it is like very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Bleem was, I think.
I mean, and didn't it kind of set sort of the legal precedent for emulators in and of themselves, like, not being an issue? If I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. I think
I don't know.
The gaming historian is working on a episode about that. So maybe
Ah.
he knows.
About the
He's-
Bleem or emulators?
About Bleem, yeah.
Oh, okay.
About the lawsuit.
Well, that's probably what he's getting at. But I've never used one, and I guess I had heard that it wasn't that amazing, but a lot of people have replied to our PlayStation video saying that, like, oh, Dreamcast is the best way to play PlayStation games. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, but
I've
it's
never tried it.
I remember when they first announced it that it was going to work for everything, and then they ended up releasing it only for specific games
Ah.
because they couldn't get it to work for that with everything.
Yeah, I remember that.
But they could make it. They could get it to work with certain games that it wasn't supposed to work with. But I'm not sure, how reliable it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe.
But it's cool. I mean, it had some good ones. They had like Metal Gear Solid, Tekken 3.
Have you used it?
I remember just trying it out when it was first released, because that was when I was working retail, so I was just able to borrow it and try it. But it was an interesting time. I mean, even then, I hadn't even emulated that much at that point. It was pretty much just Final Fantasy V, because, the translation had just come out.
Mm-hmm. Really, the only game I remember emulating to any significant extent when I was younger was, I don't know, I think I played like Sonic 1 or Sonic 2, like a little bit, but not a lot. I don't think I tried Final Fantasy V emulated until sometime later because I had the PlayStation version.
Mm-hmm. Bob from Retro RGB has a question for Kevtris. Says that he forgot to ask during the interview with you. I was wondering if there's a chance of arcade games.
Oh yeah, sure. The reason I haven't done any arcade cores is because usually they're kind of game specific. So I've been going for game systems because there's a lot more bang for the buck. But I was thinking of doing the system. I can't remember what they call it. The hardware that does the Robotron. Because there's about, I don't know, 6 or 8 games that use that same hardware, but more importantly, I can develop my 6809 core, because I really want to do Vectrex.
Ah, yeah.
So I want to do Vectrex and then the Vector arcade games with a full Vector simulation, too. So imagine Vector to, HDMI or whatever.
How do you think how would a CRT handle a Vectrex simulation?
It'd be pretty good. See, the thing is, you can never really fully simulate a vector because the brightness range is very high. Because you can have on a vector monitor, it can be so much brighter than a regular CRT, like a regular scanning CRT.
What would the output resolution of that? Would it be 240p or would it be 480i?
It'd be 1080.
Oh,
for the CRT, yeah, it'd have to be 240. I mean, I was thinking about adding the 31 kilohertz mode to do 480p, but that'd be very easy to do. I just haven't done it. I haven't had time. I've been trying to get all those cores ported. I got another 9 cores to port.
Well, because the reason I asked was because I have no idea what a Vectrex screens what its refresh is.
Well, it's vector, so the refresh is basically whatever the game refreshes it at. It just basically draws the vectors one after another. So if you have more vectors, the refresh is effectively lower.
So could you, in theory, do something like really high resolution for a PVM or a BVM? If you want to do 1080i or 720p or something for Vectrex CRT?
Well, see, I can actually output that right now. The DAC and for the RGB and HDMI, they're tied together, so I just blank the DAC output when I'm doing the high def stuff.
Huh.
You should, if you're back, you're backing out of Master System.
Well, I might go back because you can jump between Coleco and Master System and Game Gear without loading anything up.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is so it's instant, really. I want to.
Thank you, importer, for the $5 super chat.
Very
$5
nice.
Canadian. Thank you.
I want to play a little ColecoVision Smurf. This is like the one game that I remember playing, and I've got my cousin's ColecoVision now, but
you got modded. Like nobody knows you got it modded. Like you,
I did get an RGB mod in it, but I don't really have everything set up quite right with
it doesn't work.
I think it might be a cable issue, but I just haven't had enough time or really. I just haven't been motivated to really troubleshoot it. But I think it might be a cable thing more likely. But for my cousin had this game, and back when she actually had this system hooked up, like this is like the one game that I really remember playing on ColecoVision. But she actually had like a lot of games, like probably 15 to 20 ColecoVision games. I've got it; they're all mine now. But for some,
you have this.
I own.
I think somebody in the chat said that this is the happiest game ever.
But I just I feel like this game is not really well regarded. But I remember it at the time, and I remember thinking like the graphics looked amazing.
Is this the happiest game ever? Because you can make Smurfette take her dress off if you pause the game at that one screen.
Are you serious?
Can you?
Well, what it does is it just changes the palette or something, but that's what people were saying.
Oh.
I think if you pause the game, I think if you walk back and forth on the final screen or something, I can't remember. It's been a while.
If you oh no! But I thought the graphics were like really good, and I think it was because like the Smurf character like actually kind of looks like
he's animated really well.
Yeah, he's animated well. He like the pixel art is like really clear, and even I feel like for NES games at the time, the sprite work didn't really look like the artwork. Like in the instruction manuals and stuff. So
I thought it was hilarious on this game that all the jumps and stuff have like point values like right on them.
Yeah.
For a reason.
If you trip over a piece of grass and you're dead. Which I put in the video. That was like the one thing I knew I had to have from ColecoVision in the video. So you can like do this like crazy like Mario style double jump. I never knew that.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Now, me being an NES era kid, I have to say that it's a lot easier to play ColecoVision games for me with a D-pad.
I know. I can't imagine using that horrible original controller for it.
I've never used one.
But the buttons are necessary for more things than just like choosing a game mode, I think, right?
What now?
The extra number buttons on ColecoVision, like I think they're necessary for more than just like selecting a game mode, I think.
Yeah, only on a couple games. Most games you just need like 1 through 4 or 5 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
So you can type them in on the D-pad, but you have to hold down like the left and right left trigger and stuff. Or if you have that DD or DTT data pad or whatever that thing is, NTT data pad, this thing. This works.
Yeah. I've seen that in your videos. Like, if anyone's interested in like seeing like sort of some of the method behind it all, you should check out Kevtris's YouTube channel because he's got a bunch of stuff. Like I saw you using that controller on a number of your videos.
Yeah, that controller is awesome. I love this thing. So I have this hooked into my NT Mini for development. So yeah, I've been using this. So if you have one of these, this will work with Intellivision, Coleco, and anything else with a number pad.
That's awesome.
But you got to make your own adapter.
Jaguar.
Unfortunately.
Would it work with a Jaguar?
I don't have Jaguar.
Oh.
It could. Actually, I like the Jaguar controller. There's a pretty nice controller. I made a Jaguar controller into a 5200 controller and an Intellivision controller. Because I think the 5200 has the worst controller of all time.
Wow, I just beat this game twice. I feel pretty good about this.
Brett Bates in the chat asks, is it possible to use the expansion chip from a cartridge plugged into the NT Mini for audio when playing a ROM that isn't the same game?
Not at this time. It would theoretically be possible, but I don't support it.
That was something I was curious about asking, because I love the idea of basically using cartridge hardware. I mean, not just for audio, but I just like the idea of using cartridge hardware.
You have the Super UFO.
Yeah, so
does that.
I'm curious if you know anything about that, because everyone just kind of hates on that. You know what I'm talking about? The Super UFO 8 for Super Nintendo?
Yeah, I had one of those copiers. I didn't have a UFO. I had the Game Doctor though.
Oh, okay. So everyone kind of craps on that thing, but I played all of Seiken Densetsu 3 with it, and it was perfect. I tried Dragon Quest V, and there was some weirdness going on with the text box, but overall, I haven't really seen any problems with it. And if you have a cartridge with special hardware on top, it uses the cartridge hardware. It doesn't have it inside, but I just think that's really cool that it actually uses the cartridge. At least that's my understanding of how it works.
Well, I had the Game Doctor, and it came with a DSP-1 adapter, so you could play all of those games like Pilot Wings and Mario Kart with it. But yeah, before modern technology, those things were the best thing ever. You had to load the game off a disc, but it was that or buy the cartridge. So
yeah, so I mean, I definitely advocate using real cartridges. It's how I always play games, really. And
why is the screen upside down?
Because this is not a real ColecoVision game. Well, it is now.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
This is Kevtris.
I'm waiting to see what the actual game is like. Or is it just like Tetris?
It is Tetris. It is Tetris.
Yeah. It was a programming demo, and I'm like, oh, you should release that. And I was like, oh, okay.
I assume that the second player functionality is just another player playing Tetris. It's not there's not a competitive mode in it.
No, well, I mean, it's only competitive. Then you just see who gets the highest score.
Right, but there's no you don't send junk blocks or anything.
No, And there's a bug in this where the second player gets twice as many points, so it's kind of handicapped for first player.
Yeah, this is in the Smoke Monster pack. There's two. I thought the Smoke Monster packs were supposed to be really cleaned out, but there's a lot of duplicate ROMs, and because I can't see the full rows.
Well, that one is not really supposed to be distributed. It was the cartridge version, which was slightly different. So someone dumped it and released it, even though you're really not supposed to. But I really don't care. It's a crappy game anyway, so.
I mean, it's Tetris,
So what is the origin of the name Zimba?
There's a little history behind it. I didn't want to name it something stupid like retro this, game that, box, whatever. That's boring.
Give it its own name.
What?
Give it its own sort of unique name rather than
Yeah, I was
a
sick and
name that
tired.
is its own.
Yeah, everything's named like a retro this or a box that or, you know, like game whatever. And, you know, it's just kind of boring, you know, having everything always the same like that.
Yeah.
So my friend on IRC, a long time ago, someone came into the IRC channel and was talking about, oh, what's your favorite video game system? And my friend in there, he's like, oh, well, I have the Zimba, you know, 1000. It's from Zimbabwe, and it plays all the games. So I was like, hey, and then, you know, this was like quite a while ago. Oh, like 15 years ago or something like that. And so I was like, well, you know, I want to call it something. I think I'm going to call it the Zimba 3000. And it was something different, you know? It wasn't like a retro or video or whatever, so.
But the FPGA, like, I assume, like, for development purposes, you own FPGAs that are not cheap enough to mass produce and sell as like a finished console. But
No, that's not true. That's not true.
oh,
I'm doing all my dev work on the NT Mini right now.
but what about like? But you've done some dev work on like on like 16-bit stuff to some extent, right?
Yeah, it's all been on the same dev board that I created.
Oh, but the NT Mini itself is not powerful enough to really do 16-bit.
Well, it can. Well, the Intellivision 16-bit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it couldn't. You don't think it could do like Genesis?
I think it could do Genesis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But
it can't do Super Nintendo though.
What's the distinction?
Well, the funny thing about Super Nintendo, the Genesis is really 16 bits. The cartridges are 16 bits wide. The Super Nintendo's more an 8-bit system. The cartridges are only 8 bits wide on it.
Huh.
So I still think it's kind of dumb they call it a 16-bit system when, you know, it's not really that 16-bit.
I mean, it's the same thing with the PC engine or the TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah, it's exactly, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of a marketing designation,
Right.
I think you'd call it.
And considering, you know, the Super Nintendo is able to produce, you know, more. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is. I don't want to say better graphics than the Genesis because they're just different. You know, it's.
Yeah. Well, the Genesis, I was surprised it came out in '88. That really surprised me. I just learned that today.
Well, the Mega Drive or the Mega Drive
Drive
release, yeah.
In Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. The U.S. release was
'89.
yeah, like October.
But yeah, it's. I mean, the Genesis, I guess, has a more powerful CPU.
Nah, not really.
Really? That's what I'd heard.
Well, it has a 68K in it, but the 68K is like super duper like slow. I mean, it's running at almost 8 megahertz, but it takes so many cycles to do anything on there that it ends up being kind of slow. I mean, I think they're about tied, really,
Right.
the CPU and the two systems.
Okay, because I saw a breakdown of like in regards to like the Nintendo PlayStation. I'd seen a breakdown in regards of like what the combined power of Nintendo, Super Nintendo plus PlayStation would be. The specs of the full system combined, how those specs would compare to Genesis plus Sega CD and TurboGrafx plus Turbo CD, and you know how all that specs add up. And the one thing I noticed was that on that sheet at least, it was showing the Genesis CPU, just the CPU, like not graphics stuff, but CPU was showing on that sheet as being faster or more powerful or something.
I still think that between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, it's probably kind of a tie when all things are considered. But the thing that really matters on the system, it's going to be all of the graphics and audio chips. You know, the CPUs kind of takes a back seat to all the graphics and audio.
But I mean, that's like the main game logic, right?
Yeah, and
Which
all
at the time you could do almost any of the game ideas that they had at the time on any of it.
I think they're fairly well matched, but the Super Nintendo definitely is much more complicated. Like the video and audio on it is much more complicated.
Well, I've been playing Kevtris a while. I've just kind of been like zoning out with it. So I don't know anything about this game, but I included it in the video because it was the first in the row. And so I was just like, oh, illusions. I don't know anything about that. And I booted up. I don't understand what's going on, but it looks kind of neat.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun game. It's really easy when you realize how you play it. Everything, when you press the button or whatever, everything's kind of put into a buffer. So you make the little things on the screen do stuff, but you kind of like tell them ahead of time. It's kind of hard to describe.
They like change directions and stuff. Like, are you trying to like eliminate all of them?
I can't remember. It's been a really long time since I played it. But when I played it and finally figured out how it works, it actually was pretty intuitive and easy. But I'd almost have to look up again how to play it.
Yeah, like you change the directions and they collide. Like it's an interesting looking game, but I don't quite understand it.
Here, I'm gonna look it up real quick. I'm curious.
Okay, now
so in the comments for the new episode, there's a lot of stuff going on, discussion about the distinction between using the term emulation and simulation. Now, simulation is something that we used originally in the AVS episode, right?
Yeah, and
that's what Artemio said.
That was Artemio's suggestion, and my understanding is that it would not be incorrect to call it emulation, but the problem is that people so strongly associate the word emulation with software emulation now. So I think Artemio, my understanding of what he intended by that was to say simulation is a clearer word to describe what's going on here.
Yeah, it's kind of a gray area. I mean, it doesn't work like a traditional PC or emulator you'd run on some kind of computer. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You're simulating the hardware on the system versus like emulating it with software that behaves like hardware. I think that's the difference. Right.
And some people, and we didn't get this in some of the other videos where we use this terminology, but for some reason there's a few people where they're like, it's still emulation. It's like, well, but it's still, it's different. We're trying to make it clear that this is a different thing, and we're not trying to use a lot of words to describe it, you know?
Yeah, as for my YouTube channel, people are talking in the comments. I really want to make a bunch of more videos. I got lots of really cool stuff to show. A little preview right now. I have this. This is a dual Super Nintendo board designed for aircraft.
Wow. What?
To play games on the seat back of your plane seat. So what I'm going to do, I just got this board. I don't have anything else. I got the board. I got some of the other control hardware for it. But I know nothing about this board. I just picked it up, and I have two of them, and I bought the connector that goes here, and I'm going to reverse engineer this and make a video series of me reverse engineering this board and getting this to play games.
So, you say you don't really know anything about, but do you know if it's essentially, it's not significantly different from a Super Nintendo board?
Well, it's the same chips. It's got on this one side, I don't know, you probably can't see it. It's got the PPUs, the CPU, and on the back side, it's got the two audio, and it's got all the RAMs and everything. And there's two 512K RAMs here, and there's two on this side. So this can run games that are up to 2 megabytes in size.
Ah.
I should be able to run like Mario All-Stars on this board, for example, or Zelda.
So you said it was actually on airplanes?
Yes, this was in the aircraft, and when you played a game on your seat back, this is what was running it.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that either.
And see, this is a triple. This had 2 copies, had 3 copies. This one isn't stuffed, so this only has 2 Super Nintendos on it. But I got a couple of these boards, and then there's this other board here, which is a PC basically. It's got a 386 on here, and then there's a VGA, like from a VGA card on the other side. And this would give you the instructions and tell you to put money in.
Huh.
That is cool. I never even heard of that. I didn't even know that such a thing existed.
You know, I wonder if it's similar to, you know, the you've got the LodgeNet for the
Yeah,
N64.
this is very similar. This is very similar. This is what the LodgeNet would have had in it, was something like this. In fact, it says on the board, it says Nintendo of America Triple Gateway Board at the bottom. So this is 3 Super Nintendos, but yes, this is what LodgeNet would have had in it, was something very similar to this.
Yeah, I actually didn't know until pretty recently that there was a Super Nintendo LodgeNet, because I never...
Yeah,
I say what?
I played it.
Really? Wow.
Red Roof Inn had it.
Red Roof Inn.
Until, like 2008.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the N64 ones all the time, but yeah, I don't remember that one.
Oh yeah, speaking of that, this was going to be in one of my upcoming videos too. It's the LodgeNet Super Nintendo controller.
Oh, the control. What's it look like?
Oh. Well, that's just the
That's the guts.
The front half.
I took it apart because
okay.
I actually reverse engineered it already. There's a board inside. But it's actually kind of interesting because I was curious how close to a Super Nintendo this was. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar. But apparently I could buy the box too. You can actually get the box for this. That was the set-top box. But there's no Super Nintendo in the set-top box. It was all in their back end, you know, like in a back room somewhere at the hotel.
Yeah.
And the most amusing part about that controller is the very, very, very long coil cord that came on it.
Yeah, the N64 has a long one too. Probably not that long.
Well, it's designed to be the remote control for the television, so you want to stretch it all the way to the bed, which is kind of silly.
I'm not necessarily a Pac-Man expert, but I feel like this seems like a pretty good version of Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's a little wide.
That wasn't released either, I don't think. Isn't that still technically a prototype?
I could have swore that I've got a ColecoVision Pac-Man, but maybe it's Atari. I don't know. I get those cartridges confused.
Yeah, they're kind of similar in size.
Yeah, because
I thought I found a bunch of prototypes one time and come to find out they were Coleco cartridges. I was so disappointed.
Because my cousin, I only ever knew that they had ColecoVision, and so when I ended up with like all of their ColecoVision stuff, and it had like, I later realized that a lot of these are Atari carts. Because Atari doesn't really have like branding on their clear branding on their carts, or at least a lot of them don't seem to. Yeah, this is definitely wide, but I mean it's smooth and it looks good, you know.
I mean, it feels wide to me because I think I'm just used to playing like Miss Pac-Man like on a vertical screen.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying like this is smooth. Like if I'm remembering correctly, the Atari version of Pac-Man is considered, pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, check your
because they made it in like a month or something like that.
Check your email, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And load up some 2600. I think you should also, if you get a chance later on, you should play the Master System version of Ninja Gaiden.
Oh yeah, the PAL one. Oh, and something I do want to try. And actually, maybe I'll try this now. Before I forget, me and Kevtris were talking on via email, and he said, and I assume I can do this loading the ROM off of here. I can only assume this ROM is here. He said try playing Super Mario Brothers PAL version on NTSC speed, because what was it you said? You said that when you
it's like you're playing Mario and he's on ball bearings.
but he's like, I think you said that if you're playing a NTSC cartridge, it slows it down by the normal PAL amount, which was 16 point something.
20%.
But
16.6. Yes.
But then for some reason, PAL is sped up 20%.
20%. Yeah, it's the same amount. It's because it's like you're adding and then you're subtracting. It's kind of like, when you go to the store and they say 50% off or 30% more, it's that same kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, I can't even hit this box.
So that's a really good fun trick to play on someone. You put the PAL Super Mario on your NTSC system, and if they're drunk a little bit, you have them play this, and you see, they're like, wow, I can't play this at all.
What does it feel like? It's just too fast?
It's weird because the fact that the game moves fast, but I also feel like because I'm moving fast, that Mario should be able to jump further, but he can't.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it is really disconcerting when you play this, and you're like, you can't play the game very well because, I don't know, it's really hard to describe, but it just feels like Mario's like on ball bearings or something.
My understanding is that Nintendo did not do a lot of PAL optimization in the NES days.
Yeah, I would say it depended a lot on the second party. Like Rare did a lot of PAL and NTSC games, and Codemasters did too, actually.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because those are PAL region companies.
Yeah. Like on Wizards and Warriors 1, if you play the two versions, it's kind of interesting because on the PAL version, the music is fixed, but the sound effects aren't. So the sound effects are slower and a different pitch.
Yeah, and the music here is, it sounds like I'm about to run out of time all the time.
Yeah, because it's sped up. And then, if you get the you're about ready to run out of time and the music speeds up, it gets super duper fast.
Well, you're doing pretty decent, I think.
Yeah.
I kind of get used to it after a little while, but it does make the game a bit more challenging, even if you've compensated for it.
Yeah. I really want to see if I can finish it.
Earlier today I was playing the Game Boy Advance version of Mario 2, and it's pretty different.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
I did not expect that. Like that whole little entry area has this weird thing that comes up on a
spring.
And then there's giant Shy Guys. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, considering that the other ones are pretty close.
The Vine dance looks pretty goofy here. Sped up. That's what I call it anyway.
The Vine dance?
Yeah.
So, Greg Tomers in the chat is asking if you think that you will end up releasing the Genesis Core, a Genesis Core for the NT Mini.
I don't know. I might. I mean, I think it could theoretically do it, but first I need a Genesis Core.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use any of the existing ones. I'm going to write my own. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun,
Well, let's see if I can do this jump. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that!
Yeah, you'll never see me use anybody else's code or their work. So, all this stuff I've written it all myself, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm not going to stop now.
What is the most challenging core you've written?
Game Boy.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
We have somebody in our, I think it's Adam Zay, who's in the chat here, has been working on making his own Game Boy emulator. He's been kind of posting the progress of it in our Patreon Discord chat.
But yeah, I can tell you why too. It's that the video rendering on the Game Boy is on acid. Whoever designed that, honestly, it is the most convoluted thing ever.
Does it? I assume does Game Boy draw lines vertically instead of horizontally primarily?
No, but well, here's the main difference. Like on a regular video game system that works on a CRT, it basically draws the game, as the CRT draws. It's constantly generating the graphics, right? It's always constant. It's always generating graphics, always at the same timing. Otherwise, you were not going to get a picture. But on the Game Boy, what they do is they actually stop rendering the graphics to load a sprite in.
Ah.
So, and it's really non-obvious and convoluted how this happens. So it took me 3 tries to get the Game Boy core to actually work right.
Huh.
Over like 2 years. It took me 3 attempts to get it, which is by far the most. I mean, it's just kind of hard to describe how convoluted it is, but like here's a good example on the Game Boy. The graphics cannot horizontally scroll smoothly. It's impossible. Yet it still does, right? So what they do, they send the graphics out, but they just don't clock it into the display. So by neglecting to clock those pixels in, it ignores those pixels on the display.
I'm
kind of lost.
I think my takeaway from that is they break the rules of the Game Boy to make it actually scroll smoothly.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the Game Boy can't really scroll, but the way they make it scroll is they send the graphics out anyway, and they just don't. The display just doesn't get the graphics. I mean, they're there, but it doesn't accept them because they don't clock it in. It's really funny, and then they stop clocking the display sometimes to load sprites, so the length of a scan line on the Game Boy varies by quite a bit depending on what's on the screen. Unlike on a Nintendo where the scan line's always the same length.
Does that have anything to do with, for example, Bionic Commando on the Game Boy is the example that comes to mind. The scrolling in that game looks a little jittery. Is that why?
It's just the code. Oh no, it can scroll perfectly well, but the way the hardware works, just makes it work. I mean, it's really interesting to me how they did that.
Now
it's just kind of hard to describe without being really super technical, but I mean, it's like a really huge hack that just happens to work, and it would never work on a CRT. It can only ever work on an LCD.
Oh wow.
So making your Game Boy work on a CRT or HDMI is kind of tricky because you have to buffer the screen. There's no way around it.
Oh, that power's probably just out of reach. Oh, no.
What palette are you using?
I'm using the built-in Firebrand X. I'm not positive if that is necessarily his absolute latest version. It appears to be based on. It appears to be one of the variations of Composite Direct, which he's changed the name several times.
Yeah, it's like nostalgia now or something, right?
That's what that really makes me laugh a lot. How everyone's obsessing over the palettes and stuff.
Well, it's a great feature.
Is this something that doesn't you're pretty indifferent to the palettes?
Yeah, well, and through most of the development of this, I just had that PC-10 palette in here for the entire development cycle.
Oh,
of this.
wow.
That's how little I cared about it.
I mean, that makes sense because you've been at this for so long to where I mean, that was the only. That was the only that was the only really official RGB palette for a while.
Well, I dumped all the pallets out of those PPUs. I was the dork that did that. I built hardware specifically to dump the pallets out of all of those PPUs because there's like 7 different ones.
Oh wow.
Because on the Versus games, the pallets are all funny, and they did it for like copy protection, so the arcade operators wouldn't just copy the ROMs and you have 2 copies of like Super Mario versus Super Mario or whatever. So there was like 4 major ones with totally different palettes, and then there was about 5 of them with the same palette, but it had like little other differences in it. So those palettes are all in the system, but I somehow broke it. So you can play all the Versus games on this system directly, but for some reason it kind of broke a little bit, and I just haven't had time to fix it.
Now, what would happen if you tried to play Versus Duck Hunt? Can the zapper be used?
I can't remember if I piped that through or not, because the way the zapper works on the Versus system is a little different.
But do you think you could
It could definitely
hack the system to accept it instead?
Oh, definitely, yes. It definitely could be done. One funny thing about that, I was playing that Versus Gumshoe, and it has a thing in there. If you break the light gun, like the arcade machine will make this super duper loud, annoying sound if you disconnect the light gun for any reason.
So I just noticed someone in the chat said that the Hammer Brother jumps every 3 hammers. Is that right? Because I never knew that.
I was watching it, and I was waiting for you to run under him, and you never did.
See, I always, for me, it's always been more of a confidence thing. Like I'm just like it's like whether I have to feel confident and that I'm going to do a jump. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like more than that to me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not every third.
It's a little random, but you have enough time when you see him jumping to get through there.
He just started running toward me. I never see him do that. For me, it's always just like, okay, one of these times when he jumps, I'm going to have the confidence to run under him. To me, it's never really been about counting or anything.
Or you can just, when you get up there, if you just jump over him really fast, I think you can usually do it before the hammers appear.
Sometimes it works, but I usually don't do that because the failure rate is relatively high in my experience.
Well, he needs to jump in a regular pattern. It's the same timing every time when he jumps, it looks like. But he may throw a different number of hammers, but I'm delayed by about 40 seconds on the stream, on the YouTube one anyway.
Well, this is my last life, so we're going to see if I'm going to do
it. So I was just talking to, when we were talking about Zapper, like the Zapper, I was just talking to Joe Rediper, and he would mention that you may be thinking about making it so the NES Zapper will work with Master System games at some point.
And someone said that it wouldn't work, but I don't know. I think it would. I don't know why it wouldn't.
I didn't realize that they were such different technology.
Well, they're the same technology. I mean, the way the Master System handles it is different versus the NES.
Great job. You just went. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Now, can the Famicom 3D glasses be used for Master System 3D games?
They should be able to. See, what I was going to do when I make the Master System cartridge adapter, I'm going to put the 3D glasses adapter on it.
Okay. Oh, so you're just going to have a little 3.5 millimeter input on it?
Yeah, because you probably don't know, but I made a 3D glasses adapter for the Vectrex a while ago.
Oh.
Yeah, no idea.
So I emulate that spinning disc on the 3D imager for the Vectrex.
The power, I think you have to plug, I forget the order, but the Famicom 3D system adapter barely fit, you kind of have to nestle the power cord underneath it.
Yeah. Well, if I put it on the Master System thing, no, I guess you wouldn't be able to use it because it'll be using the same signals that the cart uses.
If I take the SD card out while the system is running, will that screw anything up, or should I turn it off?
Do what now?
If I were to take the SD card out while the system is on, is that okay, or should I turn it off?
Yeah, you can do that, but what'll happen is, yeah, you can do it. So you'll have to go all the way back to the main menu and then go back into the core menu. But yeah, it's fine. I do it all the time. It'll when you put it back in and try to go back to the menu and load something, it'll say file not found.
Okay.
It'll kick you back out one menu level, and then if you try again, it'll say file not found. It'll kick you back out to the main menu, and then you can just go back in and it'll be fine.
Okay, because we're gonna get some 2600 action going on here. I should have had this done before the stream, but I didn't realize how late it was getting.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize how late it was getting before the stream is what I meant.
Yep, I got my dev system running right here now. Actually, I got 2600 ET on it going.
You know,
when I was a kid, I didn't know that was considered to be, like a bad game. That's what's so interesting. Like a lot of these games, you just thought like, oh, this not that great, but you don't think of it like, oh, this is a bad game.
I mean, some people have told me that in the grand scheme of Atari games, it's actually kind of good.
It's kind of crappy. I had it now as a kid. So on the camera right now, here's my prototype NT right here. I got a prototype NT. It's aluminum, no coating or anything.
Yeah.
So this is what I test all the firmware on. I test the firmware on. This is my golden unit here. If the firmware works on here, I release it.
Can you click whatever so that it appears back in the chat? Because I know that you're working on your desktop, but
Wait, what was?
Kevtris is showing us around his thing, and like now both of us are,
I'm sorry,
are gone from the.
What was?
I don't know if they can see me or not.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that there was a
show and tell.
Well, what was covering it up?
It looks like brushed metal, kind of.
Well, it's just aluminum. It's just unpainted and unfinished aluminum. It's prototype metalwork. And then this is the dev board with a very super bright LED on it. So this is where all the programming happens, is on this board with my JTAG blaster. Whoops, I just crashed it there.
Do I need to put a BIOS in the Atari folder?
No, you don't, unless you want supercharger.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't worry about it then.
Yeah.
By the way, what is your opinion on how I am pronouncing that word? Because I've heard it said a few times, and there was one comment that said, "Oh, you're going to get so much crap for saying it that way," and I said, "Well, I haven't yet."
Yeah, BIOS is how I say it.
I've heard it both ways. I was under the impression that either was considered acceptable.
I always said BIOS, but then when I was saying it like in a sentence in one of the episodes, it came out as BIOS. And maybe that's why. Maybe you heard me say it like that.
I do remember hearing you say it like that. But
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know if there's a right or wrong.
A very heavy sixer. Yes, it is very heavy. You could beat someone over the head with that thing, and then it would still be just fine.
I do have a 6 toggle, but I don't know the distinction. I don't have anything to compare it to. All right, let's see what happens when I go to Atari now. I'll have to load the core. I've not loaded this core before. Ooh, core not found. What? I could have swore I put it in.
Oh, you don't have it on there?
I thought I did. Or maybe I need to reboot the system for it to find it.
Oh, did you go all the way out of the menu? Go all the way out of the menu to the main menu, and then go back into the core menu.
Oh, okay, that must have been it. Well, I'm getting it back up again now anyway.
So I've been working on another core lately. I don't know when it's going to get released. I finished Supervision today, such as it is.
I don't think I even know what Supervision is.
Oh, it's a little crappy handheld LCD system.
I think that's some of the most fun cores to have. Is the handheld systems.
The stuff that that and just the stuff that like no one even talks about. You know, it's just because it's like wow, that's like awesome to like for that to be available for people to play.
Yeah, you know, I have a lot of really weird like third string systems on here.
There's a Commando for Atari. I gotta see how this runs.
Oh man.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's supposed to have it's the Commodore 64 that has like the kind of funky soundtrack.
Yeah, the Commodore 64 version of Commando is awesome. It's got the awesome music on it. I remember being so disappointed when I got the Nintendo Commando. Man, that thing is horrible. It plays like it's ready to crash.
Yeah. You know, I always thought it was
chunk, and everything's all flickery and crap. It's like, who is going to release this?
So I don't, you know, my 2600 experience is pretty limited. Oh, this must be like player select? Okay.
So the way the 2600 works is start and select is your reset and select on the 2600. So normally you select the game with select and you start it with start or reset. Is usually how that works.
So the you know, this is actually a lot better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, on this one I call this Scalar 2 versus Scalar 1. Scalar 1 is used on the NES and the Master System. Scalar 2 is different. It lets you control the height also.
Oops, what did I do? I think hitting start is like a kill button. So I'm in vertical height, and it says 4x, but it's still pretty small.
Well, the reason is because the 2600 is a very weird system. The game controls how many scan lines are generated.
Oh, interesting.
So
a lot of games have a totally different number of scan lines.
Really? So does it have like this crazy thick scan line effect? Because I've never seen that I can recall like anything less than 240p.
Well, some of the games, there's this one game that outputs so many scan lines. It outputs 348 scan lines, I think it is.
Wow.
So it ends up being like 45 frames a second. It is horrible.
Wow.
It's like on my PVM, it does like sync up, but the screen like rolls up and then locks into place over like the course of 2 seconds.
Like I'm impressed how smooth the scrolling is in this. This is kind of good. I don't know.
Well, vertical scrolling is awesome in the 2600. It's that horizontal scrolling that you can't.
Okay.
Because you know what the software renders the scan line, so to scroll vertically, it's super easy. You just change the position of your code or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got diagonal aiming, vertical scrolling. I mean, this seems kind of good. I heard it. I don't remember where I read this, but I read just like a week or two ago that apparently the 2600 only has enough RAM to remember what is in a single scan line.
Well, it's got 128 bytes of RAM, which is not that many, but they did some pretty interesting games with it. This game only uses that 128 bytes, I think. I don't think this has a super chip RAM on it, which is another 128 bytes of RAM, which is like a huge amount.
Now, doesn't someone at MagFest was talking to us about expansion audio stuff, and I want to say he said something about Pitfall 2 having expansion audio on.
It's the special directory. Play it.
Okay, let me check this out.
Yeah, it does 3-channel audio through one of the volume registers on the TIA.
Which directory?
Special, bottom one.
There's 2 ROMs in there. I guess I'll just load the first one.
Either one works. I don't know what the difference is.
Oh wow! Look at all the colors on that horizon there.
Yeah, I know. I like that. That's my favorite. I think that's my favorite 2600 game.
So.
Oh, Pitfall.
Yeah, I mean, I hear.
This is
I hear a lot of different. Definitely hear a
it's
lot
two.
of different sounds. I hear. I mean, maybe I'll turn it up on the mixer a little bit so the stream can hear a little better, maybe. So, but that's nothing that I have to activate it. Now, would it? If you had a Atari 2600 cartridge adapter, would you need to implement an expansion audio feature?
No. The code actually is playing a 15 kilohertz digitized audio. So every scan line, the code is manually updating the volume register on the TIA to play that.
Wait, so the scan lines are what is essentially making...
Well, no, there's a chip on the cartridge
Uh-huh.
that actually is playing the music. And it just generates the frequencies, and there's a register that outputs the instantaneous value of the audio, and they're reading it from the cartridge and writing it to the volume register every single scan line.
Okay. So it's like, yeah, it's crazy how that... It's a little beyond my understanding. Now, I was playing a little bit of the Coleco version of this, and I think you can crouch in that version.
Of 2?
Pitfall 2, I think you can crouch. I think it's in
Yeah,
the,
you can't
I think it's in the
Pitfall.
video because I used Coleco Pitfall 2 in it.
You shouldn't be able to.
The video released the day that the Atari 2600 core came out. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get anything in there. But I feel like Coleco games, are roughly similar enough to 2600 games to sort of be a stand-in for that generation in the video. I didn't get into a whole lot of specifics with how the cores operate because, like, you're going to be, doing some updates and stuff.
Well, it's pretty much all set in stone right now, how everything functions, so to speak. Oh, whoops. You're not going to get that gold now. Watching falling water on there.
I remember you saying that that the Game Boy Color core needed some tweaking.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, it'll just live in that when I release an update. I've actually updated most of the cores at least once by now. So it's seamless to the user. If they install that zip file, the new ones are already in there.
But if you don't copy the whole zip file over, I assume you have to include the new. You have to also copy over the new version of the core. It's not just going to be part of the main firmware install.
Yeah. So what you do is you replace that system directory.
Okay.
And that's where they all live at.
So is the Game Boy Color one yet to where you're satisfied with it, or?
No, there's still a bunch of things I want to fix. I just haven't had time to do it. And there's one game the Game Boy core does not run, and we have not been able to figure out how to fix it.
Oh, is that pinball something?
That stupid pinball game,
but
yeah.
I remember you saying that most emulators won't run it anyway, and no one knows why.
If you have an accurate Game Boy emulator, you cannot run that game. Oh, by the way, on those ladders, if you press down, you won't fall down those holes.
Oh, okay. I press it near. Okay, because
Yeah, you have to press like
in front of it.
I've actually beat this game with a perfect score.
Wow. Yeah, this is by far the most I've ever played of this game.
It's actually a really fun game.
Yeah,
it was pretty ahead of its time. Too.
I've always thought that Pitfall, would be more among the games of that generation I would get into. I'm not like super into like high score styles of games. So
Yeah, either.
So like Atari and you know arcade games of that era, like I'm always about like you know sort of more adventure type games that you know have a clear you know beginning and end and stuff. You know, the first game I ever played was Super Mario Brothers, so that's kind of defined my taste in games ever since, I think.
Well, I first played Adventure on the 2600, which has a defined start and end
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I have that cartridge, so you know it's kind of nice because now I can play like some of the Atari games that I have without having to like get. I mean, I am going to get my Atari modded, but you know that's why I told you. I said you know when you release these. When you release these cartridge adapters, I mean, I'm going to buy like you know all of them. I mean, I don't know. I might not buy a Game Mate one.
Actually, I can't make a Game Mate one
Oh yeah.
because the connector's special on it, and those things are like $300 on eBay,
Oh.
which kind of sucks. I hate that. Proprietary cartridge connectors are the bane of my existence. So I don't know if you saw on Atari Age, I posted my update thread about what I was going to do in the next couple weeks.
Oh, a new thread or
Yeah,
the.
well, no, it's on the usual place.
Oh, okay.
But I got about 8 or 9 cartridge adapters. I'm gonna do all next week probably.
Are they
wow.
hard to make?
No, it's super easy. I'll be able to make the circuit boards. I'll probably make 4 or 5 boards a day. So it'll take me a day or two to design them all.
And then you're just going to like send them out for manufacturing, or are you going to just make them by hand?
Well, I'll get them. I'll probably buy 10 of each, which is the usual prototype quantity. And then I have a laser cutter at work, so I'm gonna cut some plexi for the front and the back to make them
Nice.
vaguely cartridge shaped. And then I'm gonna cut some pieces for the top to guide the cartridges into the sockets, and that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. I'm really excited about that because
Yeah, it's super easy to make, so I don't know if I'll even make them. I may just release the files and let other people make them.
are you going to have any software available for dumping like ColecoVision and Atari carts or any non-Nintendo carts?
I thought about it, but it's a lot of work. I don't know how much, demand there is for such a thing. We're talking of the Venn diagram of people that own the NT Mini combined with cartridge adapters, combined with the people that want to dump stuff. I think it's going to be pretty small.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would definitely do it. Just because I'm like, I really like the idea of just, even though it's ultimately meaningless, I just like the idea of having my own ROM. You know what I mean? And I've never really had hardware before that would let me do that, and so that's why I want to do it. With the Copy NES core.
Oh yeah, I understand that. I did that too. I dumped all my games too.
So does this game have infinite continues?
Yeah, but what happens is your score counts down every time you get hit.
Does it go down like to the same amount?
It goes down, I think, 1 point for every pixel.
Ah, okay.
So when you get hit, next time watch your score, it'll go down.
Yeah, I noticed that it went down, but I wasn't sure if it reset to the amount when I passed that checkpoint or...
No, it's basically how far away you are from the checkpoint. So when you get a perfect score, basically you picked every treasure up and you didn't get hit.
Ah, okay.
It's a perfect score. And
How long did it take you? How many times did you have to play before you...
Not that many. Probably took me a day or two. I mean, it's really not that hard.
I mean, you just get to that thing that's directly under the starting point?
That's it. That's the end.
A lot of these Atari games with like a defined start and finish are less complex than I had imagined, I guess. Like I beat, well, it's not Atari, but I mean I finished Smurf,
Yeah, I'm not, like you said, I'm not really a huge fan of those games where you just keep playing for a high score. I mean, I know some people like that, but I definitely like a game with a defined start, middle, and end.
Because I feel like that's an accomplishment I can
Yeah,
make.
exactly. You feel like you accomplished something.
I'm not I'm not good enough to get like a real high score, and I don't have like a very competitive personality, so it's just like, I just want to beat a game, you know. Anything else in Atari folders I should look in here?
You may want to play. I really like. I don't know. Is the audio up? Can people hear the audio?
Yeah, people should be able to hear the audio.
I like Missile Command and Yar's Revenge. Those are pretty fun. Those are
yeah.
games.
Or Journey Escape.
Ugh.
I don't even remember how Journey Escape even plays. I just remember as a kid thinking the music was so
Here's
awesome.
a few different Missile Command. 81 or 83? There's an 83 ROM.
I don't know which one. You can try any of them.
I'll just try the one at the top.
Oh yeah, and that 4K menu, you may notice some funny like characters in some of the file names. That's normal. That's because they use extended characters in the file names on that ROM set.
Oh, okay.
See that? That's what that is. That is not a bug. So I put that in the text file, but it's not a bug.
Yeah, Missile Command is such a good game.
You know, I think this might be the first time I've ever played it. I mean, I know the name.
It's probably more fun in the arcade when you have like the ball.
This is a very good version of Missile Command. It's much better than the 5200 or any of the other versions I've played. It just plays so well for some reason.
It's pretty. The cursor feels good, like moving it around.
Yeah, it does. And
it's
the
a weird-looking cursor, but you know, whatever.
Sound on this game is just awesome. I love the count up at the end. It's like.
Man, it's been so long since I've really played any Atari games.
Yeah, last time I played them was several years ago when I worked on the core, and I didn't play them again until just recently when I ported this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch, but they're really all just hand-me-downs, and I don't have I want to get an RGB mod in my 2600, but like at the end of the day, though, I know that I'm like not going to play these games a ton, but it's like I respect them, but I think I was born just a couple years too late.
I'm the same way, really.
Yeah.
I mean, but like something like this, I play this quite a bit, and I played Adventure several times. But most of it just doesn't really age very well. But it's there for completeness sake, and some people like it.
I think did I run out of missiles or something that I couldn't fire anymore.
Well, that on your little thing in the mail, that's how many of your
okay.
And those little boxes is how many sets you have in reserve. So if you shoot too many times, you're screwed. And you just gotta watch your cities turn into mushroom clouds.
I've got at least I say it's for ColecoVision. I'm pretty sure it's for ColecoVision and not Atari. I've got some. I've got a roller controller for ColecoVision and a steering wheel and gas pedal for ColecoVision. I'm not even sure. Honestly, of the games that I have for it, I'm not even sure what it would be for, especially the driving wheel.
What, Coleco?
I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be for Coleco.
The roller controller is for that Slither game.
Oh, okay, I've got that.
The steering wheel's for Turbo.
I don't think I have that.
I don't know if they're for anything else.
Whoa, what's this blue thing? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I didn't blow it up.
Oh, what the little the thing? I didn't see it.
There was a quick blue thing coming down with the missiles.
Oh yeah, that might be a UFO if it makes a little bleep 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 noise. Yeah. The sound of those is awesome too. I think it's really cool about that. When it gets closer to the bottom of the screen, it gets louder.
Mm-hmm.
Down to one city, at least here.
You should, so you've got,
Oh yeah, that's a UFO.
Oh, whoa! It turned gray. Is this just game over?
All your cities are blown up right now.
Oh yeah, I think that was the game over. But yeah,
If you had gotten to 10,000 points, you would have got a new city.
Whoa! Check out the menu weirdness on this page.
That's what I can't see it, but is that the flashing characters?
Yeah, there's some random green characters flashing. I didn't see that before.
That's because of the extended characters in the file name. I don't strip those.
What is Pepsi Invaders?
It looks cool.
Coke wins. Pepsi Invaders. This can't be a real. This can't be a real game.
It was real. It was actually released.
Seriously?
It's just a hack of Space Invaders, though.
Oh,
but it actually came out.
It actually came out. It was given away as a promotional item. It's a very rare cartridge.
So this is like
It's like
Coke?
Was it released by Coke? Obviously it was. Coke wins. You know, they're just talking shit.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yes, it was basically
great.
Coke shit.
Like, I love the name of the game. Like, includes Coke wins. Like, you're giving away the ending here.
Well, the thing that I find hilarious on that is how they managed to change it to Pepsi, and then they just left the last alien like what it was on the original game.
Like I was trying to figure out, is that like the Pepsi version of the Noid or something?
They should have made it a little Pepsi bottle.
You know, I've played more of a Commodore VIC-20 ripoff of Space Invaders called Avenger than I have actual Space Invaders.
I like how the UFO's the Pepsi logo, too.
I can't believe that Coke really released something like this.
Yeah.
Like, that's like almost too direct.
It was the 80s, you know, it was a different time, I guess.
There's a question in the chat that said that you said that the FDS stick had issues. Well, actually, it was me that said it, I think.
You know, if you like get the ones that aren't at the very end like that, it'll like take a lot longer before they'll come back down.
Ah.
So anyways, the FDS stick. I'm not sure. I don't own one, but some people are saying they're having problems with it. But I wanted to know if they're having problems if they use RGB or just HDMI or both, because it matters.
Well, this person is saying that he used his for multiple hours and it was fine. And it's possible that
RGB or HDMI.
I don't know, but he's saying that he updated the firmware on the stick.
Oh,
so that might maybe
okay.
that.
I actually didn't know that it had firmware updates. I'll be honest. The first time I even took it out of the packet was to test on the NT Mini.
Okay, so maybe that's it then.
Well, I did. Well, I tested it. I double checked it though. I tested it on the actual Famicom, and it worked fine. Now, granted, I had not tested extensively, but there was a clear difference in using it on the NT Mini. Coke won! Coke won!
You're kidding.
It won!
I didn't see that coming.
But I don't recall specifically if I did test the FDS stick on RGB or not. So I know I did on HDMI. So that maybe that's it. But it definitely worked. You know, like I say, I didn't test it for forever on the Famicom, but it seemed to work. Whereas like within a few minutes of playing Zelda 2, and you know, like Zelda 2 was the example I showed because I thought it had, in my testing, it had the most interesting corruption. Like, unfortunately, what happened in the video wasn't nearly as interesting as what happened when I first tested it, which I was wandering the world map, and like the HUD, like with the experience counter and stuff, just started drifting, like it started like scrolling down with the it started scrolling down with the is the map scrolled. It scrolled the HUD scrolled down, so I was like walking around like my experience counter and stuff.
Yeah, weird things can happen. I've seen some very weird things when I've been debugging stuff. Like, games doing very weird things.
Yeah. Yeah. But aside from the Zelda 2 thing in the video, all of the Famicom Disk System games were in the episode were using the real
thing.
the real discs.
Yeah, see, I tested, I have 3 FDS units, I tested all 3, and I tested 20 games on 20 different units, NT units. Mm-hmm. So that's the extent of my testing, which I thought was about as good as I could test,
Yeah.
Because, I had the time frame for doing this NT Mini was just, incredible. I did the whole thing in just like 3 months.
Are you serious?
That's
it was announced longer ago than that, wasn't it?
Board design, that's everything. Board design, all the software, and porting the system and all that. I didn't do the enclosure, of course, but I did all the hardware design on it.
But you had already had a FPGA core for NES.
Yeah, so I had to do everything else.
Right, but you had the early basics already kind of down.
The NES core is pretty much done. I had fully debugged it many years ago. For the most part. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was kind of the ironic thing. I didn't actually have to do any NES debugging. It was all getting the HDMI to work, mm-hmm. all the hardware, because I had to do a whole the circuit board design. So you had the circuit board design, and then all the menu. That's all brand new code.
Yeah, I'm impressed like how quickly it came out from, because I remember when the first NT was announced, it was delayed several times. So when we were told that we could get a review unit, and they were like, well, it's going to be shipping late January, and we'll send it to you a few weeks ahead of time. I'm like, really? You said it was coming out in January, and here it is.
Yep. Well, I worked very hard on that. Everybody worked really hard on it. I was pulling 12 hours. I was working my normal job and then coming home and working on this until like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then getting up.
I was going to say, again. Yeah.
Over Christmas, the last push, I did 100 hours in 1 week on this thing, getting it done.
What's how's Texas Chainsaw Massacre play?
It's terrible, but you can play it.
That movie. Man.
Oh, so
I can tell you about that movie.
So, like, you're the bad guy in this.
Yeah, you're Leatherface.
Look how many
Leatherface.
Look how many colors are in this.
I know, it's like so.
People were all up in arms, I think, over this game of how violent it was.
I mean,
it's so funny that it's like rainbow colors. It's like so.
How can it do that? Because like.
Well, no, it's just it's so like not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I know, but my point is like. My point is like how is it able to do that? Is it because like each scan line can have its own color palette?
Sure. Yeah, the 2600, the software changes everything per scan line, so you can do whatever you want.
It's just got this sound effect. I assume this is supposed to be the. Didn't they have like a? It was like a giant frozen meat freezer or whatever in the movie, right? I can't remember if I'm thinking of the remake or the original though.
I've never seen the actual movie.
Oh really, man?
No?
The original is. I think it's terrifying. It is terrifying, and it's scary because they don't actually show a lot of the there's not really any blood in that movie. It's a lot of it is implied, but you think it's a lot more violent than it actually is.
I don't know what game you're playing right now with all the colors on it. That's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I know.
Well, it's the one that loaded up when I booted it.
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're running around with a chainsaw and stuff. And it actually has Texas Chainsaw Massacre like as a title screen.
Oh, there was no title screen. It just went straight to the game.
Yeah, try the other one.
Maybe
there
it was
two of them there.
I'm not sure which folder I was in. Was it the 4K?
I think it's 4K.
I'll always remember seeing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was rented it on Halloween. I think it was maybe like 1998. And man, it just... I had to return it immediately after watching it. I had to return it to the video store because I just felt like dirty having it in my house. It like really makes you feel like gross.
Yeah, you want the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the list. I just looked.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that first one is a prototype, it says. I have never seen that before.
Oh, okay. I should have known this because okay. I should have known this because I edited for the video game years. I edited the Texas Chainsaw Massacre segment, so I should have known that looked funny. I forgot that I did that.
This looks
that's the one. It just hit the video here. Yep, that's the one.
I love how they represent his ear just by being transparent. I think it's so weird that you play as the bad guy. So I want to, before the stream is over, I want to play some Game Gear because I haven't done that yet on here. You know what I want to play on Game Gear? You know, I didn't really have a lot of ideas for what to show for Game Gear stuff because my
Sonic games.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty obvious. But aside from that, my knowledge of the Game Gear library is relatively limited. I
suggest there's a translation, but you really don't need it, of the Coca-Cola Kid. That's actually a pretty fun game. I like that.
Oh, let me see if it's in the translation folder. It doesn't look like it.
You don't really need it. I mean, there's not really a lot of dialogue, but it's basically good for background information.
Coca-Cola Kid. So is this another Coke Wins game?
No, but it's kind of an interesting game. It has a really good sample of a glug glug glug.
See, this is a great way to play Game Gear games. I'm just buying a modded Game Gear off of Bob from Retro RGB that I actually have been borrowing for a year and a half. Now I'm going to buy it.
So, the Game Gear stuff you can't do, like, Game Boy lets you do a 7X. Is there a reason that's not...
I was thinking about adding it. Well, you know, the Game Gear is just a Master System.
Right. So I was wondering if that was some sort of limitation that made it not possible to do the 7X like on Game Boy.
Well, what I was thinking about doing was releasing a second version of it, just a specific Game Gear core that actually has this proper scaling.
Oh, okay. Now, I understand that the proper Game Gear aspect ratio is a little bit wide. It's not square pixels like the Game Boy is.
But yeah, and you know, all a Game Gear is, it's a Master System, but you can only see the center 160 by 144 of the screen.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So it's actually kind of funny if you play the games without that masking that I have on there. You can't turn it off. But when I was developing this, you know, I could actually see all the other stuff outside of the center part of the screen. So one thing that was really strange is on Sonic Triple Trouble, they actually use it kind of as a debug, because, you know, when you get to a certain point, you know, at the end of any Sonic game, you know, you can't scroll back to the left anymore, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm not a big Sonic guy. I actually didn't know that.
Well, when you hit the little thing, you know, you can't scroll left anymore because, you know, you ended the level. So what they had
when you beat the level. Yeah, okay, I knew that.
So what they had done on that game is they used that area on the screen, and it goes from red to green when you can't scroll anymore, like as a debug, I think.
Ah.
That was kind of cool.
This game looks pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it said 94, so I wonder if that's the reason it wasn't released in the U.S., because it definitely seems like a game that would have been released in the U.S., you know?
Yeah, I know. I like this game. It plays really well, and it's fun. I was going to play it some more. Oh, yeah, and a lot of these areas at the bottom right of the screen and the left, when you hit a wall, a lot of the times you can actually break through the wall. And I like how, like, all the stores, they only sell Coca-Cola. Notice that. And there's always a sale, because I guess there's too many people selling it.
Enjoy
And then, like,
Coca-Cola.
power up, of course, are cans and cups of Coke. Because, like, fighting guys with diabetes is awesome.
Skateboard.
You know, my only real Game Gear story is I had a friend in 3rd grade, and I was going to go over to his house, and I wasn't, I was wondering maybe if I should like bring my Game Boy so we could play some like 2-player games on. I was like, "Do you have a Game Boy?" And he said, "I have Game Gear." And I was like, "Well, okay, but do you have a Game Boy?" I'd never heard of Game Gear, and like when you say he had Game Gear, I thought he meant like he had accessories for Game Boy. I'm like, "Okay, but do you have an actual Game Boy?" He's like, "No, I have Game Gear." Like, well, why do you have gear for Game Boy but not an actual Game Boy?
Well, you want my fun Game Gear story?
What's that?
Well, I bought a Game Gear a little while after it came out. I had a Game Boy too, and so the guys I bought it, I bought it at the electronic boutique. It's like, "Oh, you want to buy the AC adapter too?" I was like, "No, I think I'll be okay." So I take it home. I use it. It takes 6 AA's, so I found 6 AA's kicking around. I put them in there, and I'm playing it. And about 30 minutes later, one of the batteries explodes inside my brand new Game Gear. 'Cause you know how they say don't mix, types?
Yeah.
That is why, because, the Game Gear, even on a good day, what do you get, like 3 hours out of a set of batteries or something?
Probably, or less.
4 hours if you're lucky. So then next day I was in there buying a power adapter.
All the people that are complaining about the Switch battery life should think about that.
Yeah. Well, that thing's rechargeable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what are they bitching about? They didn't have to pay, $5 to run their Game Gear for 3 hours.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Switch only comes with one power adapter, so.
But it uses a USB-C, so you can pretty much just get a generic one.
Well, yeah, that's true. But, I mean, you have to buy a second one if you want to travel with it without having to dig it up. But I already went ahead and bought one. I figured I'll just buy
an extra adapter.
Yeah, I bought the official one. I mean, I'm sure
it's interesting that they're like a power brick.
I'm sure you can use a generic one, but I mean, I've had experience with cell phones where they don't charge very well or charge as fast, with using a different adapter. So this game's pretty neat. I wanna play I want to play Aladdin. I don't know why I keep hitting start to try to load a ROM. I want to play Aladdin. I have no idea if this version of I have no idea if this version of Aladdin is considered good or bad or whatever, but like the first level is like this like auto run level, and it seems like actually kind of interesting. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I played that. Yeah, I remember playing that.
It's like, is the whole game like this? I mean, that would be kind of weird, but
I can't remember.
it could be fun. Like, I just didn't have enough time to really see if I could like finish the whole first level, but I really want to see what happens after the first
Some
level.
pretty good parallax.
Yeah, it's like a good looking game. I wonder if there's like a Master System version.
I don't think there is. You know what game you shouldn't play?
Okay.
Back to the Future on Master System. Back to the Future 2.
Is it worse than the NES one?
Oh God, it's unplayable. I tried playing it. It's impossible. You know the shitty thing? I had like 3 or 4 like bugs in the core, and they all show up on that one horrible game.
So it became your go-to chess game.
I had to play that thing like a whole bunch of times to get it debugged.
So how hard would it be to like implement like save states into?
It's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it, but the problem is this is not a computer. So I can't just grab all the internal state and dump it to a file.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So on a computer, like an emulator, it's really easy to do a save state. You just save, all the memory and save your, CPU registers and all that, and you're done, right? But on this, it works like real hardware, so it's kind of the equivalent of trying to do a save state on a real, NES or Game Gear or whatever.
But if a game does have save functionality built in, and you're playing one of the ROMs, that'll save to the
It
SD card.
saves, yes.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that, but when you quit the game, it'll ask you if you want to save it.
Right. So, but what it's doing is you have to save in the game, and then it saves the same save RAM that is.
That would be on the cartridge.
Yeah. And is that just like write it to the ROM file itself? Is that like
No,
it's
it makes a .sav.
Oh, okay.
With the same file name as the ROM.
So check this out. Jasmine's running along with me now. This whole game is like this auto run game. Whoa! Look at the edges of this building. Holy crap! Look at that! Whoa!
We're waiting for it. We gotta wait for it. Wow! Look
at that! Isn't that freaking great?
Yeah, it's a little 3D effect.
Like, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of into this. Like if I get Game Gear, I might get this game. Like, I know, like, this is probably, like, disappointing to people at the time, but now I'm just like, oh, this is like...
your eyes, though.
Say what?
R.I.P. your eyes. Trying to play this on a real Game Gear.
Yeah. Yeah, but when I say get a real Game Gear, I have no intention of actually getting a real Game Gear for playing on a Game Gear screen. Like, I want a consoleized Game Gear or one with output.
Uh-huh. Well, see, that's the reason I made this, too. I made all those cores. I want to be able to play all this stuff, on a good thing. All my cores right now, the ones I haven't ported, they're all RGB. Mm-hmm. So I've been playing all my things on the PVM. So when I port these cores, I actually have to add all that HDMI functionality to it.
Do you think a Game Gear cartridge adapter is pretty likely?
Yeah, I bought a lot of 5 dead Game Gears on eBay yesterday. I bought 2 dead Game Boys, and then I bought a bunch of like sockets from DigiKey. That's a part distributor. Mm-hmm. So I have the list of cartridge adapters that I posted, and I have like 9 of them I'm going to design right away.
Well, I definitely want one.
Let's see, the list. I can tell you what the list is. Let me look here. Master System, Intellivision, Coleco, 2600, 7800, Odyssey Squared, Supervision, Game Boy, and Game Gear. And I'm making a PS2 keyboard adapter, so you can plug a keyboard into the Famicom expansion port.
Oh, wow.
I might have to end up getting one of these one day.
It's just a really convenient way to capture stuff from lots of systems that are otherwise really inaccessible,
Uh-huh.
Right.
See, I was hoping people would get this to do, videos on YouTube of them playing these games, because now you got, a really nice high def output, and you can capture it and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I see as being the ideal use for it, absolutely.
And it kind of makes me laugh. I was watching that Mike Matai guy playing games on the Retron 5. I'm like, how the hell can you do that?
I've
he's
done it.
switching all this stuff over to RGB. He's actually Bob is helping him.
It was funny because I was playing. Jason brought over a Retron 5. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try playing this. So I plug a Super Nintendo controller into it, and I'm not using a wireless controller. I'm using a real Super Nintendo controller, and I figure, well, that'll be the least latency, and I'm using the monitor I usually use. And then I'm playing this thing, and I'm like, wow, this sucks. I was playing Boulder Dash, and the lag was like, epic on it. I didn't think I was very, sensitive to input lag, but it was unplayable.
Yeah, the Super NES.
Super
Nintendo
really is pretty rough on it. NES is not as bad, but Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance are really rough on it.
No, I was playing NES. I was was playing Dash, which is NES.
Yeah, it is noticeable on NES, but like I can adapt. I can play it, but Super Nintendo, like anything other than RPG, is pretty rough on Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, I can remember when I was like 21 or so, I remember getting drunk at a party and playing Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, and man, that was kind of interesting because I had to like move long before my character was supposed to move. So that's kind of what it felt like playing the Retron 5. I'm like, man, how can people play this thing,
Yeah, I mean, like the RetroPie is kind of the same deal. I guess there's ways to, like, if you get into like really start kind of coding for it, you can get the input lag down pretty severely. But just like a straight up install of like I just installed
there's Greendog. There's Game Boy Greendog.
You should play.
I'm going to play Game Boy Greendog right now. Get ready for it, guys.
Greendog.
Have you seen that Super Effects demo thing for the Game Boy?
No.
It's really cool.
It's fairly new, right?
No. Oh, no, it was coded by the guy that did Prehistoric Man, and he shopped it around to some publishers, and nobody was interested. I don't know why they weren't, but they weren't.
Was it?
I can send it to you if you want to try it out.
Is it like expansion hardware on the cartridge or something?
No, it's all software. It'll run on the NT Game Boy Core.
Wow.
It's awesome. I mean, it's just a demo, but I mean, here, I'll send it.
It's possible I might have it.
It's called demo3d.gb.
Okay, let me see if I might have it in here. Let's see.
Speaking of things that run on the NT, that you got that
Legend of
Zelda
Link.
Legend of Link to run on it. It ran just like no problem, but it won't run on real NES hardware. Is that something you had to specifically say, like, I can make this game run?
No, I've never played it on there.
It was an
really,
accident.
so it just happens to run.
It just happens to work, I guess.
People have been impressed by that. I hadn't heard of that until Bob, before Bob had his, he was, it looks like I didn't put any Game Boy hacks on here. If you want to send that to me, though, I'll put it on here.
Yeah, I'm all ready to go. Here, I'll send it to you right now.
Okay, Legend of Link does run on real hardware, but it needs a specific.
It's MMC5.
Right.
Which is, well, I never got it to work. Someone sent me a cartridge that he had made, and it didn't work very well. And I tried it on just a stock front loader.
And it didn't run. Huh. But I mean, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it won't run on an EverDrive at all."
Yeah. So.
And it's just cool that it works on the NT.
Yeah. So people were just saying that, this might be like the only way to play this game on, so to speak, real hardware, or a hardware-based solution.
Also, I recently, as in like 3 or 4 days ago, I fixed that Mapper 163 so you can play that Pokemon Yellow hack.
Well, I think I saw you say something about that.
I had a lot of people, wanted to play that stupid thing, so it took me like 4 or 5 hours to fix the damn thing, but it works now. they had some like really crappy like copy protection on the ROM, I guess you could say. And it was, so the way it worked is like the game would start and run, and when you walked out of the house and you walked up, down, and left, it was fine. And then when you walked right, it would actually like trigger the copy protection check.
The other
Right.
the other game that I showed is a pretty new fan game called Metroid Rogue Dawn.
It's fairly new.
Yeah, I think it just came out in January, and it worked. Yeah.
That's supposed to run on EverDrives though too. Like Legend of Link is the only one that definitely won't run on flash cards.
Yeah, it's too big. It's like 1 meg program or something, and 1 meg character, I think.
Is it generally considered to be pretty good? I mean,
I don't know. I didn't really get to play it very much because, you know, I was playing a real cart on a real NES, and it would like crash and stuff. So I mean, I was figuring like, oh well, okay, I guess I can't play it. So,
whoa, that spinning bar is awesome.
Well, yeah,
is this it right here?
That's FX
Oh, wow.
music.
That's very Super NES like.
Holy cow!
Wow.
This is like smoother than Stunt Race FX.
yeah,
And the actual Super NES game. Oh wow. Wow,
So
and it switches
the hardest. This is one of the hardest things to get to run on a Game Boy system. So if you can run this without any glitching, you're doing really well.
I love the Stunt Race FX soundtrack, so I love that they have that in this. This is amazing.
I like how it starts out like an overhead view, like it's really crappy, and then it zooms in, and then it pans out to like the first person view.
I can't believe no one was interested in this. This is incredible. Like, this is like so much better than like any Super FX game. Like, seriously.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah,
in terms of how smooth it is, you know?
Yeah, the way the code works on it's really interesting. It like basically the way this works is it renders each scan line separately out of like a big table. So that's how they can do it.
This is nuts.
So I'm not 100% sure how it all works, but since I had to debug it, I was like looking under the hood a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Dylan Cuthbert was, you know, I always thought of him as like, you know, kind of one of those, you know, kind of one of the genius programmers, you know, of the early 3D days.
On consoles, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he did some stuff with, you know, on the Game Boy.
He did the 3D Mario face in Mario 64. But like,
he did before
like,
Star Fox. There was some Game Boy game I can't remember.
He did like I think it's called X, maybe something like that.
Yeah, it was like a tank game or something.
But this is crazy that this works with no additional hardware. Like,
It's pretty impressive.
I wonder if total encode solution could work just as well for Super Nintendo.
Probably not.
Because there's so many more lines that need to be drawn.
Well, the way this works, it's sort of a hack. It's not like a full 3D thing like on the Super Effects can do. So this is kind of like on rails.
Oh, okay.
But it's still
I crashed. Can I get back up? Oh no!
I just saw that you wrote in the chat that you're doing a Commodore 64 core.
Well, yeah, I have it already done pretty much. You know, that retro synth that I did, it's basically a complete Commodore 64 in there to play the SID tunes.
Oh, okay.
So, in fact, some of the tunes like need BASIC, so it'll actually boot BASIC up, and then it waits for the cursor to flash, and then it'll actually load the music.
You think that'll be the one that's out this Friday?
No. Well, the SID implementation I did, it actually has analog filters too, like the real chip does.
Oh wow! So you've released every single Friday since you said you were going to do it.
Well, I got a couple more in the pipeline, so I'm not gonna let up yet.
Yeah,
I got
it's impressive.
I got 10 or 11 cores to release. I mean, granted, a lot of them are crap that people probably aren't really going to play. I mean, who's going to play RCA Studio 2 or Video Brain? I mean,
But it's cool to have it.
It's
you
just
know,
it's
for
awesome that it's
completion's sake.
there. And you know, if for some reason, you know, like that's like a big thing to us. We like to capture our stuff from hardware, and so if for some reason we had a reason to capture something from some game mate or whatever,
I mean, it's there, yeah.
it's there.
True.
It's just cool that that option is there. You know.
Well, that's the funny thing about GameMate. You know, it's so obscure that people are taking screenshots by like pulling the cartridge out of the GameMate and then scanning it on a scanner, scanning the LCD.
That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And now they don't have to.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll have an HDMI GameMate, and some of the games are pretty interesting. There's a lot of garbage. The Supervision, that's basically garbage. I mean, you know how it works. You know who Sachin is. You know, Thin Chen and Sachin. You know, they released some crappy Family NES games. Well, they kind of did their magic on the Supervision too. So a lot of those same games are on the Supervision.
So is this something you're kind of planning from the very start to do?
I don't know.
Like when you were designing.
I mean, it's always one of those things where you always leave your options open.
Yeah.
But I was probably going to use this as my dev system anyways, because my old dev system is old now. I designed it in 2009, so this is basically like a new FPGA dev board for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and I think people knew that I first became familiar with your work with the high def NES, but I think people who have been following you, on tech forums for a long time, people have known you've been doing this FPGA stuff, but it's just not been accessible to people like us to actually utilize, and all of a sudden we've got it, and we had no idea that we were going to be able to do this kind of stuff like so soon, and boom, you've got it here for us to use. So it's awesome.
Well, here's the problem. I've been laboring in obscurity for years. I mean, it's like, well, how do I get the word out, right? I do stuff, and it's like, well, how do people know? There's just so much stuff out there. I mean, I made this NES core. I started it in 2004. And I mean, I got it mostly done in the first, 6 months. It took me quite a while. It took me a whole month just to write the CPU core. But these days I can write a CPU core in like a day or two. It takes longer to debug the damn thing than it does to write it.
Where did the idea of recreating a game console on an FPGA, like where in the early days did that originate from? Were you the first person that was like, I want to make a video game system on this?
No, I definitely wasn't the first, but I've been wanting to do it forever. Back in the 80s on my Commodore 64, I wanted to play the music, without the game. I wanted like a SID file type of thing. And there's nothing at the time, so I actually ripped a couple songs out of games, and then you have to load them and play them. And then I was like, well, you know what? I know how EEPROMs work, so maybe if I hook an EEPROM up to a SID chip, and while the game plays the music, I can program the register writes into the EEPROM and play them back on the chip. I was like 13 or 14 at the time, and obviously I never got it to work or anything. But when I was 20, I made my first SID player, which had a 8085 driving it, and it had a 6510 from a C64 in there and a real SID chip, and it still works. It's on my I have a video of that actually on my YouTube channel.
Cool. I think you should try streaming through the YouTube streaming app, because you've already got a decent following on your YouTube channel, and that's what we found is when we tried streaming to Twitch, not that many people watched, but people are already following you on YouTube, so they, I think people would definitely watch. I think people would be interested in just watching you do whatever it is you do with reverse engineering and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I
You should
don't
give
know.
it a try.
I just think it's kind of boring. I don't know. Maybe people would like to watch it. Like,
You'd be surprised.
I'm going to reverse engineer the Super Nintendo thing, but I mean, part of the problem is there's not really a lot to see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll be like poking stuff with a meter and talking about it, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's like kind of. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of like watching paint dry.
I mean, but you've cut in some interesting things and some of the videos you've already got, like you show the bit. I think it's actually the clip that I used in the video where you had the Jackie Chan action kung fu in the background. You were touching the board and you were making the different wave channels come out. So it's fun stuff like that.
Yeah, I got another thing to reverse engineer that's really rare. I think it's in the other room. It's a SuperVision TV unit.
Oh.
So you can play your crappy SuperVision games on your television. So I was going to reverse engineer that too and add that to the SuperVision core.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I paid like $250 for it. It better be cool.
How do you even find this stuff?
It was on eBay. Someone told me about it. It had just been posted, and I've been looking for really obscure things like that, like the Game Mate. They're like $300, and some guy on IRC is like, "Oh, I see you want to do Game Mate." Well, guess what? He sent me like 2 Game Mates and parts from a 3rd and a 4th, so I didn't have to buy anything. He gave me a couple games too, so that was really nice of him. And so I reverse engineered it. I made a text file of how it all works, implemented it. And then I think he implemented it on Mess also.
People were asking
what about
your YouTube
Virtual
channels
Boy? Well, actually, I have a Virtual Boy that the ribbon cables inside fell off of. So, I mean, it works, but you can't see anything. But I can't get the damn thing apart without, like, getting a Sawzall out because the security screws are so deep in the little wells, I can't get my game bit in there to take them out.
The interesting thing about Game Gear is I think it's 50 hertz.
It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. But it's also 32-bit, or at least it's marketed that way.
Yeah. No, I think it is. But, the bits don't really mean anything, at least on an FPGA.
Okay.
I mean, I got stuff in the FPGA that's like, I made a CPU, a 54-bit CPU in one of those FPGAs.
Wow.
My own custom CPU.
So Virtual Boy is definitely maybe a possibility.
I looked into it, actually. I mean, it doesn't run that fast, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really that complicated. I mean, it's very interesting, but I mean, I don't know how useful it would be. I mean, what are you going to use, 3D glasses to play it?
Heck yeah, I would be way into that. If it actually could be made to work with the Famicom 3D glasses, man, I'd do that all day. Well, maybe not all day, but I mean, but even still, do you think, like, I don't know, I've never tried like a Virtual Boy emulator, but I assume you could just deactivate one of the eyes to just make a solid.
Yeah, that's kind of what they do. Because the 3D is really more like cardboard cutout 3D.
Yeah. So I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a more accessible way for people to play those games. I mean, you can see the Virtual Boy right behind my head right there, but not everyone has a Virtual Boy, and I only have one game for it anyway. It's kind of a pain in the neck to use, but I enjoy Wario Land on it. So.
Oh, that game is awesome on there. My favorite game is the pinball game. That's more like a puck game.
I don't think I've ever played that. That Wario Land game is like
awesome.
It's like my second favorite Wario Land game after the first Wario Land. It's a great game.
Wario Land.
Yeah. What about it?
I don't know. Isn't it like Wario? It's just funny you call it Wario.
Land.
Wario?
I guess.
I always said Wario, like war.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Wario makes war. That's what I've always called it, Wario, not Wario.
I don't know if you've played those on the Game Boy. You should play the Super Mario Land 2 and then the Wario Land games. They're awesome.
Yeah, I like the first Wario Land. The others, like, I'm like they're okay, but I like the Virtual Boy one better than the other sequels. But I like the first Wario Land is one of my favorite Game Boy games for sure. Yeah,
I like awesome. Wario Land on the Virtual Boy because they really used the 3D, like the stuff going in and out of the background. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because like I think I had to play through it a few times to get the best ending, and like once I started figuring out like the game and stuff, like you can get through it like the whole thing with like all the treasures in like 30 or 40 minutes. Like it's not that complicated of a game, so that was kind of fun. Anyway, I was just saying. Anyway, does that about wrap it up? Anyone got any more questions in the chat or?
Yeah. I guess Troy, we should.
I should probably talk about 16-bit stuff because everybody's really interested in that.
Right.
So here's the thing: there's only one of me, and I have a lot of stuff I'm doing. So it takes a while to write this stuff. So for 16-bit stuff, it's going to be a lot more difficult and time-consuming. But I am planning on Genesis, TG16, Super Nintendo, and Super ACAN, and I really want to do Neo Geo also.
Yeah, wait, on the
Zimba 3000.
Oh, on the Zimba 3. Okay, I was gonna say.
That's for a Sharp X68K. I have never really heard of it, so it's possible it could, but right now I got like 5 other 16-bit systems ahead of it, so probably not for a while.
What about like some of like the computer systems that were popular in like Britain and stuff like those?
Well, on computer systems, the main reason I haven't really done any yet, and I want to do them too, I really want to do them, is the dirty word, disk drive. So disk drive is a problem and keyboard is a problem. So, I'm making this keyboard adapter, which will just take me a couple hours. That's not a big deal. That'll unlock computers. So Commodore 64 will definitely be first because it's all done pretty much. The only thing I have left to do is add video. And right now in that SID player I got, it has video. It just doesn't render it to the screen. So, I'm all done pretty much.
Well, that's pretty exciting. I think Commodore 64, that's going to be huge for people.
Yeah. And I really want to do Atari 8-bit and then Apple II. And then, from there, I'm not sure. But, I pretty much mined the 8-bit system vein to exhaustion here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm going to add the APF MP1000, if anybody even knows what that dumb thing is.
Doesn't sound familiar.
So, well, the reason I'm going to add it, it's going to take me like 2 days to add it. So why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 6800. I already have a 6800 core. It's in the Atari 2600 core. So that Atari 2600 core actually has 3 CPUs in it.
Someone in the chat just said MSX is the same hardware as ColecoVision.
Yeah, I want to do that too. That's super easy. I mean, I can turn
you can play Metal Gear
to MSX in an hour or two. Then I can add those like Konami expansion audio chips in a couple hours. That's super easy.
I mean, the Konami games are like the main reason to play it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's Metal Gear. There's some Goemon games and stuff like that.
I mean, there's so many things I can do. I mean, there's one of me, so obviously that's greatly limited.
Got to prioritize.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got other paid projects people are paying me for, too. So, I got to make money somehow, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just basically the big limiting factor of what I'm going to do is time.
Yeah.
So, I got to balance my time working on this stuff and working on paid projects and, working at work.
Well, as long as you're having fun doing it, sounds like you are.
I mean, I really like reverse engineering a system that no one else has really touched, like the Game Mate's a good example. No one's really done a lot of, I mean, some people done some work, but nobody's actually gone in there and just totally just dominated it.
Has anyone even made an emulator for it?
I think, I wrote the text file on how it all works. So I think the Mess guys, that's the guy that gave me the stuff. I think he did it.
Okay.
No, I can't tell anybody about upcoming paid projects or paid, so I can't really say.
Well,
Yeah, it'd be nice if there's a clone of me. I mean, it's kind of a pain because if I need someone to answer a question for me, there's nobody I can talk to, right? Everybody comes to me.
Yeah.
The importer is saying you should start a Patreon to help fund your projects.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you
It just kind of feels dirty.
It should. I mean, it's.
I mean, trust us.
There is nothing to feel bad about doing something like that. I mean, I've been trying to, like it makes total sense.
Yeah.
For someone who's doing what you're doing to do it.
The thing is, it's not. A lot of people think in their mind, oh, that's like begging for money or something. But really what it's doing is it's giving people who are like, I really like what this guy does, is giving them the option to be like, I want, how can I help support what you do? And it just gives them the option to do that, so.
That's true. I mean, I do spend a lot of money, I spent probably $5,000 or $10,000 buying stuff to make these cores, right? So now I'm getting a little payback, through the NT Mini, for example.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, your time is valuable. So I mean, I definitely think it makes sense.
You would do just fine.
Figure out where your revenue streams could be. Yeah.
Yeah, shower me with money.
I mean, you're doing good work, so we'd love to. So.
But yeah, maybe I'll do that. But I really want to release a bunch of new videos. The reason I haven't done any videos, I've just been working on that NT and these cores and stuff for the last 5 months. And I moved into my old parents' house, so now I'm back in my old bedroom, which is kind of funny. So I did all my first Commodore 64 programming in this very room.
Wow, that's awesome.
But yeah, Commodore 64 has a place in me because I learned how to program on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my dad had a VIC-20, and I remember there was a manual with it, and I opened it up and I was like, ooh, I'm going to program something. I mean, I was like 6 or 7 years old, and so I just copied word for word everything in that thing, and it did nothing.
Oh, I had great luck doing that. That's how I learned. I get the big old thick book out.
Yeah.
They give you examples, and you type it in, and then you mess with it to make it do other things. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned.
Yeah, and that just I was like, ooh, this would be fun. It didn't do anything, and so I never learned how to program. I could do some early web coding, but aside from that, I've never been much of a programmer.
Well, I can't do very much web coding. That's why my web page is horrible. I mean, I know it sucks, but I just don't have time. I'm working on courses and things, and I don't have time to learn how to make a good web page. It kind of sucks.
There's no reason to. I mean, because obviously, your time is spent very well elsewhere.
I mean, I like making YouTube videos. I really enjoy that. Like showing off what I'm doing, and people can see it, and then I don't have to write a web page about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's pretty impressive how much you've got on there. You've got a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. Well, I can show a little preview if anybody wants to see the things I was thinking about doing videos on. I got about 4 or 5 things.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I've had, obviously I showed the Super Nintendo boards. Mm-hmm. And then I've worked on a miniature doodad here that's got a display. So I have a LCD display and a circuit board with a FPGA on it that drives the LCD display. And I was playing Game Gear on this, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I basically made an FPGA Game Gear right here, and here it is. So it's LCD and the circuit board with an FPGA and SD card slot and all that on it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Jeez.
So this was my first foray into BGA soldering at home. So on the board there's an FPGA here, and it's a BGA part, and I soldered that at home, actually.
Wow.
With my homemade reflow oven.
You just make everything you need.
I just make everything I need. That is right. So, those are some of the things that I've been working on. The other stuff's in like the other rooms. I really don't want to get up and get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, now that I've been doing BGA work, I've been thinking about making another synthesizer because I have the synthesizer here that I've done videos on it. Retro synth here.
Oh yeah. I saw that.
And so this has the C64 core in it pretty much. And so I'll just leverage that code to make a C64 computer. And I bought a 1541 disk drive at the Hamfest, a brand new one a while back. So that'll be my disk drive for now. So I'll just hook that into the NT Mini.
Nice.
How long will that run on 6 AA batteries? I don't know. It'll run longer than a Game Gear will because it has an LED backlight instead of that CFL backlight.
Yeah. The one I'm buying from Bob. It's a little
show. I'm not going to comment on that. You said GYM player, wouldn't VGZ be more accurate? Well, whatever the stored music format is for Genesis, the register write format, that's what I'm gonna test with. And yes, I do have an SPC player, and that's done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I made a video on it. It's right here. It's a little dusty, but this is the SPC player. It's made
can you actually just like plug cartridges into it?
No, it has an SD card.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you put your SPC music on this, and see, this is made out of acrylic that I cut at work. So this is what the cartridge adapters are going to be made out of. Is this kind of plastic?
Nice.
So it's got capacitive touch buttons and a slider here.
Wow.
So this thing, runs on a lithium-ion battery that goes in here. It's not in there, but yeah, this thing was pretty nice. So this is kind of the prototype for the NT Mini menu. So this runs a very similar menu setup, actually.
Cool.
So yeah, that's some of the things I've been working on that I can show off anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
any other questions for me? Is the SPC player ever going to be a standalone product? Would gladly pay $50 to $100 for it. Well, the FPGA in it costs $40 by itself, so $50 to $100, I don't think that's going to happen. See, this is the problem. This is why I haven't sold anything. Is I can't afford to sell anything. No one will buy it.
Do you foresee the costs in chips that will run your current cores going down anytime soon?
Well, that's the thing that really annoys me about it. You can buy those dev boards for cheaper than the chip that's on it. That really annoys me. They're subsidized very heavily. To buy that FPGA, it cost me $40 to buy the chip, but if I was an NVIDIA, they'd be paying about $5 for it.
Oh, wow.
So, and there is no cost reduction if you buy one FPGA or if you buy 1,000. It's the same price. There is no... That sucks.
That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Wow. Can't believe it.
Well, he said SPC player built on Zimba would be great. Well, the SPC player is going to be released for the NT Mini, so there is that.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Well, Genesis might be playable on the NT Mini, or is it for Zimba? Well, it would be both. I'm pretty sure the NT Mini can do Genesis. Don't quote me 100%, but I think it can.
Wow. The controller.
But if it's not
port,
perfect,
though,
you won't release it, essentially.
Is that the case for Xilinx and Altera? Yes, it is. I'm using Altera stuff, but I really don't like the Xilinx stuff. Their chips may be good, but the Xilinx dev tools are kind of garbage.
But the NT Mini controller ports don't have enough pins for full Genesis controller inputs.
Well, see, it would use my
your controller.
controller adapter.
would your cartridge adapter would have the controller adapters in it? Is that how it would work?
Well, see, I'm kind of torn on that. I was thinking about putting the controller adapters on the cartridge adapters, but the other option is I was going to make a device that plugs into the Famicom expansion port.
That makes sense.
Controller adapters, and it have two DB9s, so you can plug like anything in, like Genesis, Master System 2600, Coleco, and Television, all into the same thing.
That would probably make more sense, because then the idea of it being on the cartridge adapter is pretty cool, but it would also be like, it would also make those adapters like a lot more complicated. Plus, like for systems that would be able to use the same adapter, then you'd have like redundant controller inputs on multiple cartridge adapters.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If I just make one controller adapter, then you can use it on anything. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if I made it on the cartridge adapter, even if you don't want to play carts, you got to have the stupid adapter.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, sorry if I'm ignoring anybody's comments. There's just like a lot of chat going on, and I'm doing the audio. And the other thing that's kind of hard for me is kind of delayed. I can't actually see like the games or anything until about a minute later. Let's see. Once the FPGA is solid enough, would you consider having ASIC chips made? I thought about it, but the problem is it would be very, very expensive. To have an ASIC made. They could make ASICs from my cores. That wouldn't be a problem, but it would be very expensive, and you'd have to, minimum orders would be $200,000 or $300,000 in parts, and it'd probably be another $500,000 setup and tooling costs. And then someone else asked, is the USB port on the NT Mini usable for data, or is it power only? Well, that's the funny thing. I really wanted it to make it so you could plug in keyboards and controllers, but I don't have enough space on the microcontroller for the host mode controller anymore. So that's kind of a downer. Yeah, I really wanted to use it. I mean, I still may be able to pull a rabbit out of my hat if I use the compiler that has the optimization and I can squash the code usage down. It very may still will be able to do that. Will there be another run of Ultra HDMI kits? I don't know. Ask Marshall. That's his product. Let's see. Could you run an emulator through an FPGA? Probably not very easily.
I guess the more important question is, why would you?
Yeah, exactly.
In the video, Troy says if he could add one thing to the scanline functions, is to add that bloom, like a kind of a CRT bloom, like the Ultra HDMI has. Would that even be possible to do?
Well, here's the problem. I'm out of multipliers. Multipliers is how you do all those type of things, and I'm very disappointed with the Cyclone 5 that I used. I've been using a Cyclone 3. And it has a lot more multipliers than the 5 does. I mean, that kind of blew me away. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use the Cyclone 5. Everything looks so much more awesome. And then I port my stuff, and it's like, oh, you're out of multipliers. I'm like, how can I be out of multipliers?
But I assume it's more powerful on other aspects.
Oh, yeah. It's got a lot more, like, block RAM built in. There's a lot more logic space. The PLLs are better. That's how I can actually do all of the video modes. I can do PAL and NTSC composite, which would be impossible without a lot more expensive stuff, even a couple years ago.
Yeah, I always thought that was a crazy feature, the way that the hybrid scan lines work on the Ultra HDMI with it really looks like a PVM almost. It's a very unique effect. I've never seen that replicated on like any other like artificial scan lines.
Well, the problem is, it looks really cool, but he has a frame buffer on there too, and I don't have the benefit of a frame buffer.
Right. But in some of the cores though, you do have a frame buffer option.
Well, that's the thing. The amount of block RAM on the FPGA is what dictates the frame buffer.
Okay.
So, like on the Game Boy, the frame buffer is basically bursting the seams of how much memory I have on the FPGA. That thing takes all of the memory.
So some cores yes, other cores no.
Yeah, so like on the Game Boy, that's taking like all of the memory for the frame buffer, but the 2600, which has a frame buffer, it doesn't take all of it because the Game Boy resolution, while it's lower than the 2600s, it has a lot more colors. So that means it takes up more memory.
Right.
And someone's asking if you can make an FPGA unit that plays arcade games. Yes, we talked about it. So the problem is arcade games are a lot more specialized. So I can play arcade games, but then there's not that much bang for the buck. That's why I like video game systems. But I wanted to make the Robotron hardware. I want to play Robotron and develop my 6809 core so I can spring that into Vectrex.
How would you control Robotron? Would you do it with like 2 control pads?
Well, here's the thing. On the 7800 core, here's a little sneak preview I'm going to do. When you play Robotron on the 7800, this is how it's going to work. This is going to be your up, down, left, right, and this is going to be firing in the 4 directions.
Okay. Kind of like Smash TV plays on the SNES.
Yeah. So I thought that'd be really good. I really want to try that on there, see how well that works. And someone asked what's the most advanced I can do. I'm thinking PlayStation 1 is probably about it. PlayStation 1 and Neo Geo. I really want to do Neo Geo just because of how obscene and obnoxious it is.
And hey, there's an arcade platform right there,
Yeah, there is a FPGA arcade. There's a Mist board. They've been doing some pretty good stuff. One thing that kind of annoyed me about a lot of the cores out there is they're never complete. They're like, oh, well, yeah, we got the core, but there's no sound. Or, oh, yeah, it plays a couple games. I mean, come on, finish your shit, people. I mean, I know it's fun to start a core, but the crappy thing is, finishing it, 10% of the effort is 90% of the result. That last 10% takes a long time. Like on that Master System core, I spent almost the entire week just fixing the stupid little bugs. I had to play every game on the Master System and Game Gear like 3 times at least.
And would you fix one thing and something else would break, or not really?
Well, I had about 5 or 6 problems. The problem on an FPGA is debugging it is so much harder than like a PC emulator because it's like hardware. So, okay, this game crashed. Well, why? It's like you can't just like look at a log file like on an emulator. It's awesome. You can just log the whole thing, and when it crashes, you just look through it and say, oh, well, that's why it crashed. So on the FPGA, not so much. So the way I do it, I have a logic analyzer that's built in. It's called Signal Tap. And you can hook this into your hardware, and it shows you the logic traces of what's going on inside the FPGA. And it's made using the FPGA resources itself, so the FPGA can debug itself.
Okay.
And so I'll run the game, and I have a good idea of maybe what causes it to crash, and I could watch on there and say, oh, well, the CPU wrote here, here, and here, and this is what happened or didn't happen. So, debugging on a PC emulator may take, a half hour. For me, it takes me, 6 or 7 hours maybe if it's a really bad problem. And the other bad thing, compiling that NES core, it takes 10 minutes to compile it.
Wow.
So make one bad keystroke on there. Oh, I need to invert that signal. Well, it's going to take you 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It adds up.
It sure does. So, so I'll make a change, compile it, and then work on something else, and then, just try to pipeline it where I'm fixing one bug while testing another bug, see if it fixed it. I mean, it kind of sucks. I mean, yeah, it's not very easy, but, I've done 20 cores now, so I've gotten better at it, but I mean, it still takes a long time.
Yeah.
Just to get them good enough to release.
Yeah.
Or perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and someone said, will it support the Amiga, FM, Townsend Sharp? Well, again, I don't know. Those are kind of low priority. I mean, could it? Sure. Will it? There's only one of me, so I don't know if I'll get to it.
But I mean, the nice thing is that you can put on it like the most commonly needed ports, cartridge ports and controller ports, and add the rest of the stuff via firmware and port adapters and stuff like that.
Well, on the original Zimba 3000, if you want me, I can get the circuit board and show you what I was going to do on it. I actually had the board made.
Wow.
Here, I'll go get it.
You're going to see it right here, people. I'm sure he's probably showed it elsewhere before, but you're going to see the Zimba 3000.
Really quick, we should talk about. We'll be probably streaming together next week.
Yeah, we're going to be doing kind of a crazy trip all of a sudden that we knew was coming up, but all of a sudden it's like, wow, we need to do this now.
Yeah, so we're going to Los Angeles. Oh, there it is.
Oh, hold on, it's not. It hasn't popped up on the Skype. Hasn't received it yet.
Oh.
I see it.
Well, yeah, but that's because Corey's talking.
Oh.
Corey needs to stop talking.
Sorry.
So here it is. This is the Zimba 3000 circuit board.
Ooh, pretty.
So this has 2 FPGAs on it. What I was going to do is have a scalar FPGA that was separate from the FPGA that runs the games. Because the scalar, takes a lot of resources, all those multipliers and logic and all that crap. So I figured if I separate the two, then the game system can use all the resources of the chip, and the scalar, is its own little thing. And then I had a port on here, and this port was for the video. So this had HDMI on it, but this is for the analog board, and I have it, but it's at work. But you can plug the board in here, and it has all your analog on there, like composite, component, RGB. And it was going to generate RGB, composite, component, and HDMI all at the same time.
Wow.
And then there's this port on the side I call the pony connector, because you want everything in a pony, right? And this is where the cartridge adapters and controller adapters plug in.
Nice.
And then, of course, on the front.
So will it have cartridge adapters on it, or cartridge slots on, or will it just have like one master slot that you plug adapters into?
That's what I was thinking. I don't know. I may put a few cartridge slots on. I mean, here's the problem with cartridge slots. You got cartridge slots, but it's like everybody has their favorite cartridge, right? It's like, oh, I like NES, or like, oh, I like Super Nintendo. Well, you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
I mean, it's going to look like a Retron 5, which looks horrible. It's like this giant, huge box with all these holes on the top, and it's expensive.
Yeah. So people can pick what they want.
Yeah, and so as for inputs on this, yes, I have 4 USBs on here. So I was going to have 4 players with 4 USBs.
Wow.
It was the idea. So this was the first circuit board I ever designed in Altium, by the way, a 6-layer circuit board with 2 BGAs on it.
Wow.
So is it done, or can you planning on revising it over time?
Well, I'm never gonna make this. I got the boards made and I ordered parts, but I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna make another one. I got this NT Mini, so I learned a lot of things from that. I learned a lot of things from the high def. So I'm gonna apply them all to this and make a new board. These boards cost me some money, but who cares? I'm just gonna redesign it.
It's all part of R&D.
Experience.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's still worth the learning process.
But the good news is now that I got these cores all converted, or when they will be done, dropping them into a Zimba 3000 will be extremely simple. They're already ready to go for digital output and controllers and everything, so I can just literally drop these cores into anything new and it'll live forever pretty much.
That's amazing.
So, you saw that little LCD thing I made. That theoretically can run my cores, or, most of them.
Wow.
Did I work on the OSSC? No, I did not. I just learned about it a couple weeks ago. I had never even heard about it.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because he originally said he didn't think that he could do. Did he say he couldn't do 4X? I think he said he was working on 4X, but then he didn't think he could do 5x or something, but he somehow squeezed that out of it, and he's got working now. I haven't had time to test it because I was working on the NT Mini episode, but Corey tested it out a little, and apparently it looks good.
Yeah, I can't get 5x to work on any of my screens that I've tried hooking it up to. Before
I'm really surprised people wanted 5x. You know, I can't add it to the high def. In fact, that high def project, the FPGA is so full on it. It's after it compiles, it says it's 99% full.
Wow.
So even if you wanted to do a revision, there's no way you could do it.
There's nothing, yeah. I could do little minor bug fixes, but that's about it. And, you know, there's a ROM in there that's got a 65 CO2 that runs the menu in that thing, actually. It's in the FPGA. And there's a ROM that runs it, and it's full. There's 32 bytes free in the ROM, I think.
I think the 5x. I mean, I don't. From my perspective, the origin of 5x is the Pixel Purist FrameMeister profiles, which I mean, you know, we're big fans of, and I like the 5x in the NT Mini because then the aspect ratio isn't so wide when you use integer scale 6x with it, so, as opposed to 4x and 5x for the 4x tall. So, you know, I feel like it's overall a lot of advantages. It cuts off maybe a couple pixels more than a CRT's overscan actually would, but it's still close enough to where it's my preferred method, and it lets you get that good a better aspect ratio. So that's what I like about. But we you know we're talking about, you know, the 5x in a lot of videos, and I think people kind of like that. And so I don't know if anyone made a big deal about 5x before the Pixel Purists did, but that might be where it started, with his FrameMeister work.
Well, you know, it's kind of really funny that, honestly, all the aspect ratio and the palettes and things like that, I really don't care about any of that. You know, I mean, I kind of, you know, after I got the aspect ratios, you know, pretty accurate. I mean, I do definitely like it better, but it honestly doesn't really bother me a whole lot. But I know a lot of people really like that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, all the stuff you're saying, I don't care about that. I'm like, this is my favorite thing in the system.
Well, that's the thing. I wanted to add all that stuff so people could, you know, tweak it all up, you know, how they like it. I mean, you know, I'm not going to use it. I mean, I know people want that stuff, so that's why it's in there.
Yeah, well, it works well. It really does. So
I think the NES is now pretty solid. I think I fixed the last couple bugs that people have found, and I don't think anybody's found really any other bugs. And I fixed that audio issue that someone had in Punch Out in that test ROM, which was kind of funny that bug was in there, because that was a very subtle thing to find.
Frank Strasser says, "Can Kevtris make the new FrameMeister?"
Well, isn't my comp shop pretty much has one person making the FrameMeister?
That's our understanding, is that in terms of their engineering department, it's one guy. At least right now it is. So
it says,
it's a little
hire
scary.
people to do the BS bug fixing crap for you. I mean, how could I? I mean, how is anybody else going to know how my stuff works? I mean, you got to get in there. It's like, okay, I mean, I document my code really well, but it's like, okay, it's somewhere in the video hardware. Okay, why are you anding this here and oring that there? And how's that interface? You know, I mean, it's not that easy. It's very complicated.
How is it that you're able to? I mean, in my mind, it sounds kind of crazy, but the way that all the exact quirks of the composite video output are replicated. Like, I was amazed when I loaded up the Master System core for the first time. I actually was hooked up via composite, and I was like, whoa! Rainbow artifacts. It's like, it's so cool how, like, you know, those weird, that's not in the NES composite, you know, but it's all rainbowy on the Master System composite. So it's just so fascinating how the video line is recreated on FPGA. Like, that's wild to me that can be recreated like that.
Well, I mean, you're just recreating the hardware, so you just make it work like the hardware, right?
Yeah, but it's just so fascinating to me that, you know, all these different aspects, even down to something like how the video gets converted into analog. Like,
Yeah. Well,
that's amazing.
So now you kind of seeing the thing that makes me attracted to it is how everything is all so easily, replicated, or how closely you can replicate it, and why it's so much different than an emulator.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You can replicate it down to almost the transistor level theoretically.
Yeah, that's wild.
So, like that 2600 you were playing, I took the schematic for the TIA and converted it into Verilog. And same with the 7800. The 7800 Maria chip, that's the video chip. I converted the transistor level schematic into logic for the FPGA. So my 7800 is like exact. It runs everything perfectly.
Wow.
Oh, and yes, I have the Pokey in there too. For if you want to play Testicle Blazer with the music, you can.
If you want.
Yes, if you want. Or you could call it Ball Blazer too, whatever works. But what was interesting, I was playing some 7800 emulators. I played Ball Blazer on some of the good, quote-unquote, 7800 emulators, and the audio is just shit. So one thing that was interesting, I didn't know it, but I guess that on ET on the 2600, when the ship comes in, it makes this like wow, wow sound. And the emulators are totally wrong. And, it sounds fine on my thing. And it's because, you have to filter it and all that. And they're not doing that. Yes, my beard used to be fuller, but I shaved it off and my head is shaved too. But I had long hair at one point in time, if you can believe that. And then I started going bald, so I shaved it off.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like the most freeing thing I ever did.
I know,
just cut all my hair off.
I do it twice a week.
I mean, you like go straight down to the skin. I always do like a 2-level guard on mine. But I think
it's funny because Jason, I think, shaves all the way down now after I visited him. And someone asked me what I think about the Myst FPGA. Oh, I think it's a fine thing. The only problem I'd have with like the Myst and the FPGA arcade boards is they're not like a finished product. They're just a circuit board with connectors. They're like, oh, here you go. So I think with the NT Mini, the thing I really liked about it, it's like a complete thing. You can buy it, plug it in, use it, and it's got a case, and you don't have to do anything. You just put an SD card in, and you're done.
And the systems that the Myst can play, like, I mean, you in theory, the cores that exist for it, you in theory can make those work on the NT Mini as it is.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, it's really pretty cool, all the stuff I can do with it. And I mean, like I said, it's waste. It would be a waste to just let it play NES games, right?
Yeah. And here we are. We can play all these things. I mean, like I say, I just think it's so wild. Like it.
Yeah, right there, it's playing.
That's your game
Supervision
game
right there. That's Supervision.
Oh, okay.
Such as it is, with all its flickery glory.
And that's how it looks, really, huh?
That's how it looks, yeah. So that's done. I finished that today. I found a CPU bug that I fixed, and that fixed everything. I thought I had an audio bug, but the game was buggy itself. I actually disassembled the game and was poking in there, and come to find out the game itself is buggy, so that wasn't my fault. But, other people are asking if the NT Mini is going to be sold again. Yes, I think next week it'll probably go back on sale, and then, yes, there'll probably be more runs after that. But, I mean, I'm not privy to all of that, but, I mean, that's just through the, what I've heard, so it'll be available. So, I mean, you'll be able to buy one. But I just hope that, having 20 different cores on it will kind of sweeten the pot a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's...
People are going to be able. They're going to be able to manufacture that for a long time, I think, because of what you're doing. I mean, you are significantly increasing the demand with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's good for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I've had people ask me, "Oh, hey, can you jailbreak the AVS?" I think that's pretty hilarious.
It's not exactly your project.
No, but I don't think it really. Well, you know, the AVS is designed just to run NES, and it's a Xilinx part too. So, but the main thing that sets them apart is I have a extra RAM chip on the board, so that's what makes all this possible. Is one stupid little RAM chip.
Well, and the AVS is like what's kind of interesting. I mean, it's limiting, but it's also really interesting. I think is that the system menu it's running in NES mode.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, I like the. I mean, the system is a fine system. If you want to play NES, it's fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. I like Bunny Boy. You know, we talk. You know, there's no rivalry. People think there is or isn't. So no, it's a fine system. But,
yeah, I think it's really cool.
It's just NES.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want more than NES, you're going to need something else.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like I said, if you want to play just NES through HDMI, it's a fine system.
Yeah, there's.
In fact, I bought one. I bought one last week, actually.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've enjoyed, and we recommend it to people. As it's really one of the more affordable entry points into NES games in HDMI.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to play your games in HDMI, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously the NT Mini costs a lot more, but I mean, I'm just hoping to add a lot more value too with all these cores and things.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, you know, it adds RGB, it adds these cores, 1080p. I mean, if you don't want any of that stuff, you know, it's probably not worth it for you.
Also,
But I mean,
also composite output, just like you remember it.
yeah, with everything that you don't want to remember about it.
With the exception of jail bars, those aren't there.
Yeah, those
which is
are
very
there.
nice.
No, I prided myself on good circuit board design for the analog stuff. So all the AV outputs and the audio input from the cartridge are all very, very clean. They're about as clean as they can get. So there's no jail bars, no noise, you know, none of that stuff.
I was, surprised how exact the output was from RGB. You know, it looks almost exactly like the NES RGB mod. Tim
Well, it
Worthington's
should
mod.
look pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that shot just up close on my PVM, and they look identical.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that's pretty cool that you did that comparison.
Yeah, well, and I actually bypassed my G-SCART for those shots just to be double sure that nothing was getting lost. So those were both of those were connected directly to my PVM.
And that shot was kind of boring at first because you couldn't get it to show up in the FrameMeister,
right? Well,
with RGB.
Right, it was because for some reason the PVM output was not showing up on the FrameMeister, and that was the only way I was going to be able to do direct capture. Now, thankfully, the guy at Retro Gaming Cables in the UK came up with the SCART cable. I'm like, oh, thank goodness! I'll I can use this to actually do direct capture stuff. But that was first I shot that shot before I finished the script. Really, I mainly shot that shot so to just be sure that I was saying the right things about the RGB output and how it compares to the real thing. Well, I say the real thing, a modded real thing. So at first I was like, oh well, all of the analog stuff is going to have to be shot off of the screen, and I did, and that was why we said in the video we're going to assume that you're connecting to a CRT if you're using analog output, because I do have to assume if you're using a system that's got HDMI output, why would you be connecting it with analog cables? The only reason I think would be when I did the audio comparisons, for example, I really wanted to do those record on RGB because it would look kind of stupid if I was recording those direct capture RGB through the FrameMeister on the NES, and then had like composite recording of the NT Mini, or had shot for the TV or something, because I wanted to do specifically audio or analog and HDMI comparisons. So I was really glad I had that SCART cable, because it made it possible for me to make the comparisons visually look the same.
Right. And he like rushed it to us. Got it to us like from the UK pretty much within like 5 days, I think it was.
He said it was going to be guaranteed Tuesday, but it ended up getting here Monday. So that was good. It made, believe me, it made production a lot easier having that SCART. So that was,
did your SCART cable actually work?
Yeah, it worked.
Okay.
The one we got from Retro Gaming Cable, because he said that he talked to you, or he talked to
I talked to him, and one little minor thing is that video connector doesn't output like 5 volts, so I guess SCART TVs need that to switch into RGB mode, I guess.
Yeah, but it worked. It works going through the G-SCART to the PVM, and it works going to the FrameMeister. So
you were previously
exactly what I need.
You couldn't get it to work because you're going to the PVM, and then you're using the PVM output to go to the G-SCART.
And I don't know why it wasn't working. I was going directly into the PVM, and then using, right now I use a male SCART from the G-SCART output to go to the FrameMeister, and it's a direct connection to the FrameMeister. It like goes to the mini den. It's not. I'm not using another adapter, but I used the adapter that I always use with the FrameMeister, using my PVM output cable, and I don't know why it didn't work.
Oh yeah, one other thing, we're talking about card adapters. Well, I've already made like 9 or 10 card adapters, but the other way around.
Oh.
Like when I've been developing these systems, what I've done is I've made this device that emulates cartridges to do reverse engineering.
Is this the thing that was in your GameMate video?
Yeah, so here's a GameMate cartridge. And so what it is, it's just a cartridge. There's nothing on there but connectors.
Mm-hmm.
And then it plugs into this board with an FPGA and a RAM chip on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a USB port. So I can load a ROM on here, play it through like the GameMate in this case. And also what I can do is I have a debugging program I wrote that runs on the GameMate, and then I can probe the registers and memory of the GameMate through this device.
Nice.
So it's like a super duper debugging thingamabob, call it. So yeah, that's how I did. So that's like one. Then I have these ones. I don't think I showed. I have a SA1 Super Nintendo cartridge. Or when I do Super Nintendo reverse engineering of the SA1, I've got the cartridge. I have a Genesis cartridge, regular Super Nintendo cartridge, Game Boy.
Wow.
Thing is, the cartridge is like super thick too, to fit in the Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Game.com.
Those are weird looking games too.
Yeah, they are. And then Game Master, which is another LCD handheld, which is crappy.
The Game Master?
Game Master, yeah, it's crap. And then
when I was a kid, I made a. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, what about it?
I was just gonna say when I was a kid, I made a fanzine called Game Master.
Someone says he misses the yellow box. You want me to turn it back on? I can turn it back on. So anyways, I got Game King. So I use this to reverse engineer the Game King and make the Game King core, and I did it the same way. And then I think I just got the one more, which is the Lynx. So I really want to do Atari Lynx on the FPGA. I got a chubby for that for some reason. And then, I just got some other miscellaneous things. But here's that circuit board with the BGA and that drove the LCD. So you can see the BGA pattern on there. So I hand soldered these with my reflow oven.
Wow.
So yeah, these card adapters were nice. They took me maybe an hour or two to make, but the amount of time it saved was just massive. I didn't have to hack a cartridge up. I didn't have to make new hardware. I just had to get it to work with this board. You know, once you get it to work with one cartridge, it's easy to make it work with all of them.
Yeah.
So that's basically how it works.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
All bow before the mighty yellow box.
I remember that, and then you were saying, I didn't think that would show up on the video.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. Well, I was just trying to get it done really quick because I'm using the camera I do YouTube videos with, and I have it hooked up through HDMI into a capture card.
Mm.
So it's kind of crappy. I don't have a webcam or anything. Let's see. Someone says, since you were around in the earliest days of emulators, got any anecdotes about those early pioneers like Marat, Gora, Firebug, etc.? Yes, I've talked to all of them, actually. I have a really funny Marat story about iNES. So, 2005 or so, he was on IRC. He's like, we're talking about VRC 6 and 7. And he's like, well, I'll give anybody a license to iNES if they give me information on how the VRC 6 and 7 works. I was like, okay, here you go. And I pointed him to those text files that have been on my webpage for like 6 years. And then he emails me a license for iNES. So, but yeah, isn't that funny? And the Firebug guy, we talked back and forth a lot about mappers. So that Gora guy, I didn't think I talked to him. Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to Firebug. He just kind of left IRC and I never saw him again.
I think it's awesome you still use it. I haven't used IRC
I've been in
since.
IRC for 22 years, 95-ish.
Is it still pretty active? I mean, is there a lot of channels still?
Yeah, like the NES stuff is still pretty active. On Freenode, like the electronics channel, there's like 800 people in it. FPGA channel has 170. I don't know. The other ones are covered up by my Skype window. So I got about 20 channels open. So I usually sit in there because a lot of dev work gets done on there. All the people that I associate with that you do FPGAs and programming stuff, they usually sit out on IRC because we just leave it open, and if we want to talk, we talk. If we don't, we don't. It's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. So if I talk to Marshall like every day. We talk back and forth a lot about stuff, FPGAs, and talk shop. So that's fun. I talked to Jason on there. And yes,
That's cool.
I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Kevtris. Plug. Let's see. Well, feasible for FPGA systems to do online multiplayer. Well, what I was thinking about doing? I was thinking about doing the Game Boy core, putting 2 of them on the FPGA, and then doing let you do link games. Well, so play 2-player Game Boy games at the same time on one monitor.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
I thought that may be a fun little thing to try.
Yeah.
For sure.
Everyone's saying, Try looks like he might be ready for bed.
I have time. I mean, this might be our
This is like the longest stream we've ever had,
well,
I think.
at least our longest Sunday night. We've done we've done some long streams on off nights, but yeah, we might have to be wrapping it up soon because I actually do have to go. I have to go into the office.
That's fine.
Tomorrow, so yeah, we probably do need to be going to bed soon. But it's been really fun.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been a ton of fun.
I had a lot of fun.
You're welcome to come back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to do it again? Absolutely.
Whenever you want me back on, I can come back on. I'm still releasing core, so if you want to talk about that or anything else, and next week I'm going to start designing cartridge adapters. So
nice. Well, I'm excited for that. So, and once if the cartridge adapters are something that you're going to readily sell, then we'll if it's available for people to buy on a regular basis, it might be interesting to show how that works in the video too.
Yeah, I think it would be a great kind of
we don't want to do a video if it's going to be such a limited thing where we're oh, hey, look at this cool thing we have, but you can't buy it, Well,
like I said, the cartridge adapters are super duper simple. That's the simplest thing ever. Hell, I did this NT Man. That's like a 6-layer board with BGAs. Now I'm making a cartridge adapter, which I can whip the board out in an hour. I mean, come on,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's super simple. I mean, we're talking, like basic level thing right here. So, I mean, I'll just be able to whip them out, in no time. Yeah. And since everything's an FPGA, it'll run the cartridges directly.
So maybe if we cover it again in the future, the finished core suite or the cartridge adapters, I'm sure it's something we'd love to revisit in the future. So yeah, it would be great to have you on.
I don't know when I'm going to be done working on it. I'm probably just going to keep adding crap to it over and over. So
yeah, it might not be complete, but
who knows?
Yeah. So next week, like when Kevtris was in the other room grabbing stuff, me and Corey started to say, we're taking we're shooting some documentary stuff that we can't talk about. But
yeah, we're going to Los Angeles.
We're going to Los Angeles
on a whim.
Not so. I mean, we've been planning
not on a whim, but it's like.
But it's sudden. Like we didn't realize that our best opportunity to go was going to be. Well, not this coming week, but the following week. So yeah, that's like I told Corey earlier, I had no idea I was going to be the guy playing Nintendo Switch on airplane this soon. But so apparently I am. So yeah, we're going to LA. We're going to shoot some stuff. Hopefully you will see what we shoot there before too long. But it's going to be really cool. So. I'm actually going to go to Corey's before we fly. For one, because it's cheaper to fly out of Cincinnati than it is to fly out of Charlotte. And two, there's some things that we want to shoot up his way anyway. So
yeah, we have an interview for somebody involved in the same project that's here in Cincinnati.
Yeah. So in other words, I will probably be at Corey's for next week's stream. And then there will
after a long day of driving.
Yeah, and then there will probably not be a stream the following Sunday. So.
Yeah, because we'll still be in LA because we won't be, unless we can work something out. Maybe we can.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right. Well, until next Sunday, and we'll just be working on whatever. So, thanks again, Kevtris, for coming by. Good night, everyone.
Yep. Thanks a lot for having me.
Take care.